Chapter 1577. Han Fei had never been the kind of person who would delay or avoid something. The Black Killer Snail King's reaction speed was extremely fast. After Han Fei announced his name, Chao Xian came the next day. By declaring war, the Black Killer Snail King wanted to confirm Han Fei's identity and see the attitude of the Immortal City. As it turned out, the Immortal City's attitude suddenly changed, even though they knew a big battle was coming. Han Fei had reason to believe that the Black Blood City wasn't stable at this moment. With the Black Killer Snail King's cautious character, there would definitely be some delay. In a deserted place, Han Fei used the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler to make a divination for today's operation. In the end, the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler fell on the peace hexagram. Han Fei didn't understand the divination at all. Was this operation going to be fruitless? Han Fei directly denied this answer. He had discussed with Jin Tong. With so many venerables attacking, how could they fail? So this ping hexagram was referring to the possibility that he would only gain mediocre benefits from this battle. Han Fei threw a wisp of chaotic energy into the 9-Palace Destiny Ruler and turned the fortune hexagram to the good hexagram. As for the good luck hexagram, Han Fei thought, maybe I'll have to consume another 4 or 5 wisps of chaotic energy. And for this battle, I don't need good luck. Otherwise, if the sea demons don't dare to fight anymore, I'll suffer a loss. Half an hour later, Han Fei was 200,000 kilometers deep into the front line of the Immortal City. From here on, it was already a place for explorers to cultivate, because there was a fundamental difference between the Venerable Realm and the Explorer Realm. It would take an explorer some time to cross hundreds of thousands of kilometers of the sea. But the Venerable Realm was different. Their speed was several times that of the Explorer Realm. Therefore, they would usually cultivate in places further away. Han Fei asked, "Old Yuan, how many venerables are there?" The old turtle said, "A peak-level advanced venerable is guarding the front line." This was very reasonable, leaving a supremacy to guard the front line. Even if a peak-level venerable comes, it's impossible to kill an advanced peak-level venerable in an instant. Even a demi-king may not be able to do that. So, you may have to go deeper into the Siren's base camp. Han Fei nodded slightly. Tonight's sneak attack was to annoy the Black Killer Snail King. However, a peak-level venerable couldn't satisfy his appetite at all. In any case, he had brought 25 of them. If they were only doing this to hunt a mere top-grade advanced venerable one, it was a little outrageous. However, Han Fei didn't give up this place. He quietly touched the ground and laid down a formation, waiting to be activated at any time. No matter what, the top-grade advanced venerable one would not be able to escape tonight. He must die. Another hour passed. Han Fei searched for another 200,000 kilometers and finally found a small city of sea demons. However, this city was built in the middle of a mountain. The Sirens hollowed out the mountain and built a large city with many people living in it. Han Fei saw a lot of semi-venerables cultivating here with his black fog body. Of course, Han Fei wasn't looking for those sea demon experts who weren't at the venerable level. What Han Fei was looking for were venerables. Old Yuan easily identified the venerables in this mountain range with the perception of an Emperor Realm cultivator. He said, "There is 1 peak-level advanced venerable, 2 mid-level venerables, and 4 low-level venerables. There are 7 people in total. But don't attack blindly, because I can sense that there are more mountains like this. There is another one, just a few thousand kilometers away." Han Fei grinned. "Then let's go and have a look." Han Fei was no longer the explorer he used to be. Little Black and Little White had also reached the Explorer Realm. The Gemini Divine technique was not so easy to detect. After a moment, the old turtle said, "In this city, there is 1 peak-level venerable, 3 mid-level venerables, and 4 low-level venerables. There is another one 6,000 kilometers away." After another moment, the old turtle said, "There is 1 semi-king, 1 peak-level venerable, and 2 high-level venerables. In this sea area, there are only these 3 mountains, and they are closely connected. Further away, they may be at least hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Once you attack, these 2 mountains will quickly send help, and people from other places will also come quickly. However, as long as you are fast enough, you can win this battle. In fact, in this sea area in Black-Blood City, there was 1 semi-king, 2 peak-level venerables, and 4 high-level venerables, including the one he saw before. There were 5 mid-level venerables and 8 low-level venerables. This force was much stronger than those brought by Han Fei. The low-level and mid-level venerables were obviously stronger than the opponents. However, Lu Yuntian, the only high-level venerable on his side, was not here. In other words, there was no high-level venerable. However, Han Fei didn't panic. Anyway, it was a sneak attack. As long as he killed a few venerables quickly, it would be enough. Han Fei's goal was not high. In this battle, he only needed to kill 5. As for the time? 5 minutes. This was the maximum time for a sneak attack. Otherwise, once the enemy mobilized the entire battlefield, a great battle would break out. Han Fei quietly returned to the vicinity of the first mountain range, placed the white mist 20,000 kilometers away, and forcibly maintained the Gemini Divine technique before Han Fei returned to the first mountain range. There was only 1 advanced peak-level venerable, 2 mid-level venerables, and 4 low-level venerables. Han Fei's first target, of course, was not the advanced peak-level venerable. At the advanced venerable level, it was not easy to deal with them. Although he had the experience of killing an advanced venerable, once he killed it with the power of a half-king, and the other time it took him more than 5 minutes. Besides, the opponent was not in his peak state. Even if he was in his peak state, it took him 3 minutes to kill the advanced peak-level venerable. However, these 3 minutes were enough for the other 2 peak-level venerables and half-king venerables to arrive. After all, the 3 mountain ranges were only separated by a mere 10,000 miles. For a half-king, this was not a distance at all. From the moment they found out to the moment they arrived, only a single breath of time had passed. Once the opponent's half-king arrived, they only needed to stop him for half a minute. When the opponent's peak-level venerable arrived, this sneak attack would also fail. Therefore, Han Fei had to kill a venerable within 1 minute. Between an intermediate venerable and a low-level venerable, Han Fei chose the intermediate venerable without hesitation. After all, Han Fei was very confident in his strength now. In a moment, he would be able to kill both an intermediate and a low-level venerable in an instant. Besides, hunting a stronger opponent first would also reduce the pressure on his side. Along the way, Han Fei thought about it several times in his heart. At this time, Han Fei directly found the cultivation place where the 2 intermediate venerables were. Unfortunately, one of them seemed to be in seclusion, and there was a seal nearby. Although the seal was easy to break and only served to isolate the outside world, destroying the seal would give the other party some time to react. Therefore, Han Fei did not hesitate to choose the guy who was not in seclusion. This was one of the most secluded corners in the mountain range. At this moment, Yu Xinghuan was teaching 3 half-venerables. Han Fei shook his head. He had to teach them everywhere. The venerable said, "The basic condition for becoming a venerable, as you all know, is to disassemble demonic energy. The 3 of you have already met the qualifications of heavenly talents. However, this is not enough. You still have to determine your Tao. Do you have a deep enough understanding of these Taos? In a battle between venerables, the more special the power of Taos, the stronger the power you will receive. Especially some special Taos, they can completely change your way of fighting." Someone asked, "Master, I always thought it was difficult to cultivate 2 Taos at the same time." But that day, the last spear that Han Fei used, Wang Zun said that he also mastered a trace of the Tao of space and time. Yu Xinghuan snorted. "You said it was a trace. When you reach the venerable realm, you can study these kinds of laws and touch them. However, there is only one Tao in the end. Just watch. That Han Fei is too arrogant. He won't live more than a few days." Han Fei secretly sneered in his heart. "I won't live more than a few days? Then I'll send you to hell first." Swish. Suddenly Han Fei released the void lines, full of killing intent. At that moment, Yu Xinghuan subconsciously thought of self-detonation. Because the impact of this moment of death was too strong. He knew that if he did nothing, he would definitely die in the next second. However, how could Han Fei give him this opportunity? Yu Xinghuan didn't have time to move at all and was pinned by the void lines. Han Fei grabbed the embroidery needle and stabbed out with the heaven-knocking gate that they were just talking about. Once the spear was unleashed, the technique would follow. With a boom, Yu Xinghuan was immediately killed. In an instant, lightning suddenly fell from the sky. However, what was faster than the lightning was Han Fei's void knife. Since Yu Xinghuan said that the demonic energy of these three people had reached 70%, they must be seeded players in the venerable realm. At this moment, of course, he had to kill them first. At this moment, Han Fei came prepared and was in his strongest state. In Forge the Universe, he had already changed the heavenly opening great path for himself. At this moment, he was a super strong master who could shake a peak-level venerable. A mere semi-venerable in Han Fei's hands was chopped up like a piece of paper. How dare you! At the moment when Han Fei launched the heaven-knocking gate, in the mountain range, the peak-level advanced venerable had already broken through the air. A harpoon was already stabbing at where Han Fei was. Han Fei punched out with one hand and casually threw out a few fish skin maps with the other hand. In an instant, dazzling light was released, and the teleportation array was activated. When the white light dissipated, there was no one left. In the next moment, Han Fei had merged with the Gemini Unity. In fact, even if Han Fei didn't merge with the Gemini Unity immediately, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. After all, the Gemini Divine technique would affect each other if it was too far away. At this moment, on the Sea Demon's side, the three Sea Demon mountains instantly moved. On the battlefront that spanned 800,000 kilometers, all the venerables and explorers were vigilant. After all, red cracks had appeared in the sky. It was just that most people were confused. Which venerable had fallen? Han Fei only fled for 1 second. When the peak-level advanced venerable stabbed the harpoon into the air, the Half-King Realm powerhouse had already arrived. He glanced around and roared, "Go after him!" Asking for votes. Moi, end of this chapter. Chapter 1578. After Han Fei fused the two into one, a sneer appeared on his face. The corpse of the mid-level venerable had been thrown into Forge the Universe by him. At this moment, Han Fei picked up a jade slip that he had prepared in advance. The jade slip shattered, and the teleportation array broke through the void, opening up a teleportation channel. At the moment he entered the teleportation array, Han Fei looked back coldly and said to the old turtle, "The Half-King won't discover my layout, will he?" The old turtle said, "In the vast sea, it's hard for them to find what you left behind." Han Fei nodded. "That's good." This kind of spatial shock naturally couldn't escape the Half-King's sight. So as soon as Han Fei opened the teleportation array, on the other side, the Half-King shouted and chased after him. While chasing, the Sea Demon Half-King shouted, "It's Han Fei. How dare he break into our camp at night? No matter what, we must kill him today." More than 20,000 kilometers away, the Half-King expert arrived in an instant. After he appeared, Han Fei's teleportation array had already begun to collapse. However, the Half-King expert's heart did a flip. The teleportation distance of this teleportation array was not long. This place was at least 500,000 kilometers away from the human battlefront. Obviously, such a teleportation array couldn't be used. Immediately, the Half-King grabbed a communication conch and shouted to it, "Hey Lin, Han Fei sneak attack the rear alone and block the battlefront for me. Even if you die, you must stop him for 10 seconds. When He Lin, who was 200,000 miles away, saw the red crack in the sky, his face was filled with shock. He thought to himself, "Who has fallen?" Besides, the rain above his head was quite heavy, indicating that the one who died might not be a junior venerable. The one who died was at least a mid-level venerable. However, when he was looking up at the sky, he heard a roar coming from the communication conch. Hiss, He Lin's scalp went numb. Han Fei? How did this person cross my battlefront and run to my rear? He Lin had just received the news, and before he lowered his head, he suddenly noticed that the space was shaking thousands of kilometers away. In a flash, He Lin rushed forward at full speed. Before the teleportation array was fully opened, he had already rushed over. As soon as Han Fei came out of the teleportation array, he saw a shadow passing by 1,000 kilometers away. A black spear pierced through the air. Han Fei stretched out his hand, pulled out a knife from the void, and slashed at it casually. Then he immediately wanted to run away. He Lin shouted, "You think you can come and go as you please in the sea race's territory? Poison barrier." He Lin naturally knew that Han Fei was very powerful. However, he felt that no matter how strong Han Fei was, he was only a middle-level venerable. He was a peak advanced martial highness, so how could he not last 10 breaths? Therefore, as soon as he saw Han Fei, He Lin felt that it was an opportunity for him to make a contribution. Perhaps he might not be able to kill Han Fei, but as long as he could trap him for a while. When the half-monarchs and peak venerables arrived, Han Fei would not be able to escape even if he grew wings. Han Fei saw that the area within 1,000 kilometers was vaguely enshrouded in darkness. When he felt the heaven spirit detoxifying insect's hook, he knew that he had entered the poison barrier. Han Fei didn't panic at all. The infinity water swept out and rolled into a torrent, trying to directly disperse this poisonous area. Han Fei, you underestimate my Tao too much. How can an invisible poison be detoxified by something tangible? Han Fei sneered in his heart. How can there be invisible poison in this world? His eyes turned white, and he saw that the spiritual energy between heaven and earth was wrapped in a layer of dark green. The battle between venerables had always been fierce. If they really fought, the energy consumption would be very high. The spiritual energy and energy stored in the void were the most fundamental guarantee for the venerables to continue fighting. Now that the spiritual energy within this range was polluted, Han Fei could certainly use the star teleportation technique to leave as soon as possible. However, if he used the Big Dipper technique, how could the high-rank Venerable One catch up to him? Wouldn't he really be able to run away? Therefore, Han Fei turned around, took out the embroidery needle, and knocked on the gate of heaven with his rod like a long dragon. However, at the moment when Han Fei took out the embroidery needle, nearly half of the scales on He Lin's body broke free at the same time, surrounded his body, and circled him into a big black ball. Thud, the intensity of Han Fei's attack was quite high. Under this blow, He Lin vomited a mouthful of blood. Under Han Fei's blow, thousands of scales were shattered. Normally, He Lin wouldn't fight with someone like Han Fei, because Han Fei was too terrifying. But today was different. After experiencing Han Fei's attack, He Lin felt that under such an attack, not to mention 10 minutes, he could even hold on for 100 minutes. Bam, bam, bam. Han Fei was also in a hurry. At this time, one golden fist mark after another, 100 invincible fist marks in a row blasted He Lin out of the poison barrier step by step. But He Lin braced himself and continued to move forward, shouting, "Poison thirst." Han Fei only felt that there were poisonous things trying to invade his blood, bones, flesh, and blood. Under Han Fei's feet, there was a series of arrays. While a pure water ball wrapped around him, the water ball constantly absorbed water essence and condensed into a barrier to ensure that these poisonous things couldn't penetrate in the first place. At this time, almost 10 minutes had passed. After another minute, Han Fei suddenly burst the water ball, shaking off the venom. But at this time, the seawater had become colorful. He Lin laughed. "Do you think you're qualified to go against my king? You can't even deal with me. My king can easily crush you." Han Fei suddenly smiled. 3. He Lin? At that moment, hundreds of beasts devoured his soul. He Lin, who was not far away from Han Fei, was roared by Han Fei, and blood spurted out of his eyes, nose, and mouth. Han Fei's strength suddenly soared, and the distance between his feet suddenly shortened. The bloody fist mark rolled up turbulent fist waves and directly bombarded He Lin's scale armor. Rumble, no matter how strong and advanced Venerable was, there was a limit. Just as Han Fei had calculated, no matter how strong He Lin was, he could only have 6,000 waves. Besides, Han Fei didn't think he had any, because he was a poison cultivator. After a punch, half of He Lin's body was turned into powder. Han Fei shouted, "There's a forbidden spell here." Han Fei knew that in at most 10 minutes, the opponent's half-king powerhouse would arrive. Although he boasted that he could kill a half-king, in fact, Han Fei knew that there was still a certain gap between him and a half-king. There was no gap, just pure strength. So, when He Lin was smashed by himself, Han Fei had already buckled him with the void lines. However, at this moment, an accident happened. The void lines buckled him, but Han Fei saw a large amount of He Lin's soul escape and explode. Soul explosion was meaningless to Han Fei. But at this moment, a face in the distance smiled ferociously. Soul poison. Swished. Han Fei's face changed greatly, and he looked gloomy. Frostmourne was instantly drawn out. Chilla. The cold light illuminated for 1,000 kilometers, and the halo didn't disperse for a long time. A rumbling sound could be heard as thunder rumbled in the sky. However, Han Fei had no time to look at the red crack that appeared in the sky. He immediately switched to the Tao. Heavenly Awakening. When the holy beam of light descended, it swept across Han Fei's soul. Han Fei only felt that his soul was burning. The next moment, Han Fei directly sprinkled nearly 1,000 points of his soul. It was the first time that Han Fei had encountered a venerable poison cultivator whose soul was poisonous. As a result, not only did Han Fei fail to absorb the soul of this He Lin, but he also killed the middle-level peak-level venerable in vain. He didn't get any benefits at all. Han Fei was speechless. No wonder the result of the 9-palace ruler of Providence was a peace hexagram. It was probably because of this. So, he didn't even get any benefits from the soul. On this side, the brilliance of the Heavenly Awakening technique hadn't completely ended yet, the sword light that Han Fei slashed out hadn't dissipated yet. Han Fei felt that at the end of his perception, which was 36,000 kilometers away, the void trembled. Han Fei deliberately paused and waited for half a minute. Seeing that the space tremble was already thousands of kilometers away, Han Fei unhurriedly threw out a jade slip. Bam! The jade slip exploded, the array patterns shone brightly, and a directional teleportation array was being activated. Han Fei, you little thief, stay here. The half-king realm powerhouse was furious. He had been rushing here as fast as he could. He didn't know arrays, so he could only escape through the void. However, Han Fei's fighting speed was too fast. In less than 10 minutes, the He Lin was chopped off. At least, that was the combat power of an advanced peak-level venerable. With this strength, even the half-king realm powerhouse would need so much time. What did this mean? It meant that Han Fei actually had the ability to fight with him. Han Fei pretended to be surprised and looked back at the teleportation array. However, the teleportation array had only been thrown out for less than a minute, and the teleportation gate hadn't even been opened yet. However, the speed of the half-king realm powerhouse was obviously faster than this. Therefore, Han Fei made up his mind and attacked the half-king realm powerhouse head-on. Han Fei opened his mouth and swallowed. Billowing energy gathered, and the sacrificing punch suddenly broke out. What Han Fei had to do now was to block this half-king realm powerhouse. However, the next moment, Han Fei saw the fastest punch he had ever seen in this world. Bam! Bam! 2 fist lights instantly bombarded the sacrificing punch at a speed that he couldn't even see with the naked eye. Rumble! The sacrificing punch that he was so proud of was directly blown up by the opponent's 2 punches. Mantis shrimp! Han Fei's eyelids twitched. When this half-king realm powerhouse punched, Han Fei already knew what kind of creature this person was. Except for mantis shrimp, Han Fei had never seen such a terrifying speed. A strange sound wave swept for more than 3,000 kilometers, and the teleportation array behind Han Fei collapsed directly. This was a half-king realm powerhouse. Han Fei claimed that he could kill a half-king realm powerhouse. However, the 2 sides were thousands of kilometers apart, but in an instant, the gap between them appeared. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1579. Han Fei had to admit that although there were thousands of great Daos in this world, in his eyes, there was nothing special about the power of great Daos of these people in real combat. However, just because they were not special didn't mean they were not powerful. For example, the power of great Daos of this half-shrimp king happened to be strength. Yes, what the mantis shrimp was proud of was not the speed of his punching, that was just his instinct. Nor was it his movement speed. Mantis Shrimp didn't run fast. However, this guy's power of great Daos gave him strength several times beyond that of a normal half-shrimp king. Although strength couldn't determine the outcome of a battle. After all, every venerable had their own great Daos. However, the venerables who embarked on the great Daos of strength were still very terrifying. Therefore, when Han Fei fought with this person for the second time, he found that this person's punch actually shook his internal organs and made him bleed from his eyes, nose, mouth. At this moment, Han Fei felt the horror of strength. At the same time, the Mantis Shrimp King was even more shocked. He knew that Han Fei would be very strong, but he didn't think that Han Fei would be strong enough to compete with his strength head-on. But Han Fei actually took it head-on. If it were an ordinary person, even a peak-level venerable, half of his body would have been blown up by his punch. Therefore, the Sea Demon Half-King made up his mind to kill Han Fei this time. If he let such a terrifying figure go, the consequences would be unimaginable. An intermediate venerable could fight with him. If he reached the advanced venerable realm, wouldn't he be invincible? While Han Fei was not his opponent yet, he had to kill him quickly. After a round of confrontation, Han Fei wisely stopped fighting with this person. Although, theoretically speaking, he could actually contend against this person if he were to stack up his strength by 3 times. However, after the official battle, Han Fei found that the source of his strength seemed to be a little weak. It was not weak, but the power of creating something out of nothing seemed to be limited by some kind of rule, so it seemed to be a little weak. This was the first time that Han Fei had discovered this problem. Han Fei thought to himself, I have to find a way to study this green jade stone bridge after I go back this time. Fortunately, although it was a little weak, the strength that Han Fei showed was not much worse than that of the Sea Demon King. Plus, Han Fei was good at speed, so for a while, the two actually fought back and forth. In a single breath, the two of them had exchanged more than 20 blows. The speed of the exchange didn't seem to be very fast, but the strength of both sides was too strong. 3 seconds later, blood spurted from the corner of his mouth. Even with the art of invincibility, Han Fei was still struggling. 5 seconds later, Han Fei was shocked. His Tao of creating something from nothing couldn't hold on any longer. This was too fast. He had never felt this way before. In just 5 breaths of time, his great Tao enhancement was actually about to be scattered. The Mantis Shrimp Half-King laughed. Ah, kid, I have to admit that you are indeed a peerless heavenly talent. You have even cultivated the indestructible golden body. Unfortunately, in the face of absolute power, all methods are useless. Han Fei sneered. Guess which side will arrive first? The Mantis Shrimp Half-King sneered. I forgot to tell you, there's a teleportation array behind the sea demons. Han Fei was shocked. At the moment when the Mantis Shrimp Half-King sneered, the space trembled. The enemy's 2 peak-level venerables had already appeared. From the moment he killed the man, escaped, killed He Lin, and fought the half-step monarch, it had taken a total of 17 breaths of time. In just 17 seconds, the enemy's peak-level venerable arrived. Han Fei's eyelids twitched a few times. This was 13 seconds earlier than he expected. He had to admit that the sea demon's reaction speed was too fast. With such a reaction speed, they wanted to launch a sneak attack? Sure enough, it was a very difficult thing to do. Dang, ding, dang. At the moment when the void shook, a melody was playing in the sky, and the shadows of mountains and rivers appeared. A young voice could be heard. See, didn't I tell you? They're much faster than you think, and their reactions are even faster. In the shadows of mountains and rivers, the Mantis Shrimp Half-King was shocked and shouted, Immortal Golden Boy? The king doesn't participate in the battle, and now you are breaking the rules. Do you really want to fight the Immortal City? The Golden Boy smiled slightly. You are still in the venerable realm. How can you be called a king? You are just a half-king. Why can't you participate in the battle? The Golden Boy walked out and crossed his fists. 2 shadows of azure dragons spurted out from his fists. Seeing this fighting style, the corner of Han Fei's mouth twitched. Even the shadows of the dragons are flying in the air. It seems that this taming dragon heavenly king used to worship the dragon race to a certain extent. But in the next moment, Han Fei saw that the golden boy suddenly held a knife in his hand. One black, the other golden. The two knives slashed, and the sky changed color. Accompanied by a vast expanse of gray mist, it charged toward the two vibrating voids. Bam, 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 bam. As soon as the two peak-level venerables came out, they saw a terrifying knife light coming at them with layers of mist. However, the mantis shrimp half-king had already blocked in front of them and punched 4 times in a row, blowing up the two azure dragons. With a flick of his tail, his real body appeared and took the blow from the golden boy. However, a part of his tail was also cut off. Humph! Immortal golden boy, do you really think you can compare with my king? Today, let me see just how strong you have become in these past few years. You too kill Han Fei? The golden boy looked at Han Fei and then at the mantis shrimp, smiling faintly. Trinity of strength, why don't you wait for good? I'll let you two come together. The others may not come for a while. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up and he retreated quickly. At the moment he retreated, he stepped on the ground and a teleportation array began to appear. When the lines of the array began to condense, the two peak-level venerables thought that Han Fei was going to run away, so they quickly took action and prepared to intercept him. In fact, when they reached the peak-level venerable realm, they also understood that although a false king could also become a king, after all, he was only a little stronger than a half-king. Although they didn't pass the king's tribulation, they gained some power, which made them stronger than a half-king. However, could a false monarch really be able to defeat multiple half-monarchs? That was unlikely. After all, a false king was not a real king, and the power of a false king was limited. Even if the two half-kings were no match for him, they were enough to deal with the golden boy for a while. But the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. Within 1,000 kilometers, blades rose and the infinity water mixed in, blocking the way of the two. Han Fei grabbed the void, pulled out a space crack, turned it into a knife, and slashed at one of them. Then he launched a sacrificing punch, blocking the way of the two peak-level venerables. Han Fei was still no match for a half-king. However, Han Fei was really not afraid of a peak-level venerable. Among the two peak-level venerables, one was extremely fast, and wherever he passed, the void was twisted, just like Du Jiangliu's twisted space. The other's body began to crystallize and gradually turned into a kind of amethyst. However, at this time, the mantis shrimp's theory was verified. In the face of absolute power, no matter how many tricks one had, it was useless. In the face of absolute power, the man who turned into an amethyst was blown back by Han Fei's punch. The extremely fast guy blocked Han Fei's knife-drawing technique with the twisted space. However, Han Fei's law of gravity descended. At this moment, Han Fei didn't need to deliberately hide the laws he had learned. Han Fei learned the law of gravity from the Black Killer Snail King. Because Han Fei himself had mastered the law of gravity. Therefore, when the law of gravity fell on Han Fei, it could continue to enhance Han Fei's strength. Besides, Han Fei could control this kind of gravity at will within a certain range. Han Fei had tried this kind of thing when Du Jiangliu was a law enforcer. What was a twisted space? As long as the twisted space he was in was completely covered, he could directly cause a range attack to the other party. When the peak-level venerable was crushed by the irregular gravity, Han Fei's sacrificing punch had already blasted out. At this moment, the venerable with the amethyst body blocked in front of the man. Both of them were sent flying by the shockwave. At this moment, the void was shaking and Han Fei's teleportation array had just been completed. And the other party's people arrived one step ahead of him. Among them, there were 3 advanced venerables, 4 intermediate venerables, and 8 beginner venerables. When Han Fei saw these people, his face was full of smiles. They really came at the right time. Today, if they hadn't come, I might only be able to kill 2 sea demon venerables. But now that they were here, it was hard to say. On the other side, Yi Qian and the others who had been waiting in the rear were also agitated. Even Yi Qian, a peak-level venerable, was a little surprised. 2 cracks had already appeared in the sky. Was Han Fei going to fight them all by himself? Yi Qian knew more than others. He only knew that Jin Tong had told him to trust Han Fei unconditionally. So at this moment he could still hold his ground. After all, he believed in Jin Tong. The two people who died must be on the sea demon's side. Someone was agitated. Grand Venerable Yi Qian, it's been almost 20 minutes since the first one died. Is General Han in trouble? Someone was uneasy. Grand Venerable Yi Qian, shall we go over directly? It's not far anyway. It shouldn't take long. Wang He was shocked. He hoped that Han Fei would die, but Yi Qian seemed to be more determined. Is Han Fei really so strong? He broke into the sea demon camp alone, was surrounded by so many strong masters, and killed 2 venerables in a row? Yi Qian shouted, "All of you shut up." Wait. As soon as Yi Qian finished speaking, the jade slip in his hand suddenly shattered. A teleportation array was quickly opened in front of him. Yi Qian was refreshed and immediately shouted, "Hurry up, let's go." In the battle formation, the teleportation array was opened, and Yi Qian rushed out of it. Immediately afterward, Wang He and the other 4 mid-level venerables, as well as Long Shi and the other 18 beginner venerables, all followed. 10,000 kilometers away, Jin Tong shouted, "You have 5 minutes." As soon as Yi Qian came out, he glanced at the battlefield and directly rushed to Han Fei's side. He shouted, "Can I kill one of them?" Han Fei grinned, but his answer was a dragon roar. Even Jin Tong was alarmed by that roar. How could Han Fei roar? At that moment, hundreds of beasts devoured his soul. In Han Fei's chest, a wisp of chaotic energy spread out. In fact, when Han Fei attacked, the 2 peak-level venerables on the opposite side also used chaotic energy. Not only did they use it, but even Yi Qian used a wisp of inexplicable black energy. Although it wasn't chaotic energy, it shouldn't be bad. Han Fei's target was the venerable who could distort space. Compared with a pure defensive player, this kind of fancy Dao was actually easier to deal with. Yi Qian drew the bow and shot an arrow. There was no spiritual energy arrow or energy arrow, but the 2 peak-level venerables were separated by the void. A huge number of spatial cracks isolated a range of more than 300 kilometers. Han Fei was intrigued. What a powerful archery skill. With Yi Qian's help, Han Fei launched 2 sacrificing punches one after another. At that moment, Han Fei felt that his power of Dao had reached the limit. Holding Snowmorn, he gathered all his strength on the sword. With one sword, the sea was divided, and the sword chi was thousands of kilometers long. Seeing this scene, the peak-level venerable shouted in horror, "San Tong, help me." Unfortunately, the battle between venerables was very short. As soon as the peak-level venerable said that, he unwillingly used all his strength to deal with Han Fei's attack. But the next moment, he felt that his soul was also inexplicably threatened. It was the threat of death. Bam! Han Fei suddenly vomited a mouthful of blood. In desperation, the peak-level venerable detonated a huge amount of his soul and shattered 3 void lines. Poochie! Another crack appeared in the sky, and Han Fei, who had been fighting for a long time, was instantly weakened. The apocalyptic divine technique descended. Han Fei hurriedly collected and absorbed a mouthful of soul with the remaining void lines. Then he looked at the venerables who had joined the battlefield. Han Fei's face turned hideous and he roared, "You still have 10 seconds. Kill as many as you can." Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1580. In fact, this was the first time that Han Fei had killed a peak-level venerable by himself. In the previous stage, in the demonic beast realm, the war god helped Han Fei completely integrate what he had learned in his life. If Han Fei's strength hadn't reached the mid-level venerable realm, it would have been extremely difficult for him to kill someone like this. It would have been extremely difficult. Although Han Fei had blown up Chen Xiang with 2 punches, Chen Xiang was unprepared at that time. Han Fei's attack was also unexpected. Besides, Han Fei was at his peak at that time. And just now, Han Fei fought with the half-king for a while and almost lost his strength. In the next battle, Han Fei was not in a hurry to take action. Han Fei used the void lines to absorb this person's soul while drawing a chain array under his feet. At this moment, the other venerables were fighting intensely, and no one knew what Han Fei was doing. However, There was no doubt that Han Fei was now able to kill a peak-level venerable by himself, and no one dared to underestimate Han Fei anymore. In the eyes of many people, a peak-level venerable was no different from a half-king. Han Fei's sword just tore a huge crack more than 3,800 kilometers long on the bottom of the sea. In the crack, the sword intent was awe-inspiring. The residual sword intent was not something that ordinary people could get close to. Half a year ago, Han Fei was envious of others who could create an abyssal chasm with one sword strike. But now, he didn't seem to be any weaker. The depth of this crack was almost the same as that of the abyssal chasm. Of course, in terms of length, it was much shorter than that of others. This time, the soul power that this peak-level venerable gave Han Fei was as high as 2,000 points, directly helping Han Fei to make up for the damage to his soul. This peak-level venerable sea monster was a flying fish with a giant fin. Although its body was broken at the moment, Han Fei didn't mind and stuffed it into Forge the Universe. On the battlefield, Long Shi, Hua Meng, and the others were all fighting crazily at this time. It was basically 2 against 1, and even 2 groups were 3 against 1. If they couldn't kill 2 venerables, compared with Han Fei, they were much weaker. But in fact, how could a venerable kill an enemy quickly? On the one hand, most venerables didn't have as many means as Han Fei. On the other hand, they were weaker than Han Fei in terms of strength. Therefore, if they wanted to kill an enemy instantly, they had to be at an advanced or early stage. On Wang He's side, the battle between the mid-level supremacies was similarly intense. The entire seabed had been smashed into a paste. Their vision was blurry, and most of them had already entered the void. However, the void here was filled with spatial cracks. Damn it. After the 2 sides fought in the void, the hundreds of arrays under Han Fei's feet were activated at the same time. He cursed and immediately chased into the void. They only heard boom, boom, boom when Han Fei stepped into the void. To his surprise, 3 consecutive explosions sounded. 3 supremacies perished in an instant. Han Fei glanced around the battlefield and saw that a sea demon venerable had attracted 3 people who were fighting him with a secret technique and triggered a void vortex. Han Fei wanted to go in and help. In the end, the void vortex caused a large spatial rift. Han Fei was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. The wall of death had many spatial cracks. Even his invincible golden body could be cut, let alone these ordinary venerables. This sea demon venerable was determined to die. He used the void vortex to cause these spatial rifts to connect. Even though Han Fei had an invincible golden body, he didn't dare to fight such a large-scale spatial storm head-on. Well, there's still one alive. Without hesitation, Han Fei flashed in with the star teleportation technique and picked up a seriously injured beginner venerable with one hand. Chilla! Han Fei casually threw this person out of the void and ran out himself, shouting angrily, "Go out and fight. The space here is unstable. Which of you can resist the cutting of the laws of space? When the void collapses, none of you will be able to escape." The scene just now made the hearts of both sides tense up. Just a moment ago, 2 human venerables had been dragged to death by a dying sea demon venerable. And another venerable was saved by Han Fei. At this time, at the border between human beings and sea demons, the entire 800,000-kilometer-long battlefront was already full of flames of war. The half-king level human powerhouses had already received Jin Tong's order to stall the sea demon venerable. Therefore, when the first venerable died, all the powerhouses on the immortal city's side had already been dispatched. But even so, there were still too few top-level combat forces among human beings. Han Fei was strong, but he couldn't help everyone in the melee of dozens of venerables. When the sea demons in the fierce battle saw Han Fei coming, they began to flee frantically. Han Fei could definitely catch up with them, but now was not the time to chase them. 5 breaths of time had passed. Han Fei had to guard the teleportation array in the outside world well. Once the teleportation array was broken, he and the others would really be left behind. Therefore, Han Fei shouted coldly, "Everyone, I'll give you 2 minutes to leave the void. Whoever doesn't make it to the teleportation array will die with the sea demons." At this time, he needed to be ruthless. Time was tight, and Han Fei had no time to chase after them or save people. Besides, Han Fei found that these people were not suitable for group battles at all. Or rather, they didn't know how to fight in groups at all. In fact, these people were all the type to fight alone. They were fighting one by one, but they were a large group. Why did they have to fight evenly? The sea demon venerable was not stupid. It might be able to kill a few of them in 10 minutes if they were seriously injured. Once they were killed, the situation of the battle would change instantly. After all, this was still within the territory of the sea demons. It would only take them a few minutes to mobilize their troops. At this time, Han Fei broke through the air, and the void around him was torn apart, and a group of people also rushed out. In the outside world, far away, Jin Tong actually blocked 3 half-kings by himself. The speed of a half-king was far faster than that of a peak-level venerable. If the time was too short, Jin Tong wouldn't be able to take down the half-king powerhouses. Yi Qian shouted, "Han Fei, it's almost time." Han Fei looked at a subordinate who had just rushed out speechlessly. The array he had just set up was already a little damaged in the aftermath of the battle. Expressionlessly, Han Fei stood alone in front of the array, quietly watching the venerables who were fighting out of the void. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle said leisurely, "You were careless. Not everyone has your explosive power and can kill a powerhouse of the same realm in an instant. Generally speaking, even if there are many of them, it is difficult to kill the opponent in just 10 minutes when their strength is almost the same. This is the reality," Han Fei said lightly, "but the human race is really ruthless." At this moment, Han Fei saw Hua Meng suddenly pull a sea demon venerable and blow himself up. Seeing this scene, Han Fei just raised his eyelids slightly, because blowing himself up was not courting death. On the contrary, because the human race was now fighting many of them. If someone on his side blew himself up, he could still be reborn. But what about the other party? As soon as the other party was reborn, he would inevitably be bombarded by others. Therefore, Hua Meng's choice was right. Although the self-explosion damaged his cultivation, Han Fei could make up for it. It was quite bold of him to do so. At this moment, Long Shi really followed up. Her long spear shattered. She condensed half of her essence blood and used the armor-piercing spear to create a big hole in the void. The hole was densely covered with cracks, and the sea demon venerable who had not been completely reborn was entangled in it. Ah! Boom! It was at this moment that Han Fei felt the void shaking more than 30,000 kilometers away. Jin Tong ordered, "Everyone retreat." The sea demon venerables were not happy. "So many of you attacked the sea demon camp, and you came and went as you please? Where do you think you are?" Han Fei had rushed out in an instant, stepped on the void, and pulled 9 junior venerables closer in a row. Because of Han Fei's deterrence, those junior venerables did not dare to be too aggressive. The human venerables were not weak, so in just 1 minute, almost everyone returned to the teleportation array. A sea demon venerable stalled 2 of them with a confinement technique, but Han Fei slashed the void and directly shattered the space. The 2 junior venerables only had time to cast a grateful look at Han Fei and quickly retreated. Han Fei shouted, "Go." Even so, there was still one person who could not leave, and that was Wang He. At this moment, Wang He looked very aggressive. Fighting 1 against 2, he shouted, "Old Li, you go first. I'll be right there." At that moment, those who didn't know what was going on might think that Wang He was going to sacrifice himself. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. But then he blasted out a sacrificing punch. The agility of wind and the stars move quickly grabbed at Wang He. The sea demons had seen the scene of Han Fei killing a peak-level venerable with 1 sword strike, so when they saw Han Fei coming, their first reaction was to escape. Han Fei yelled, "I told you to go. What are you waiting for?" Han Fei came to the teleportation array with the sky and clothes. The array under his feet activated again and he shouted, "This battle is over. Yi Qian, go." As for Jin Tong, Han Fei didn't need to help him. How could a master who was called a pseudo-king be completely suppressed by 3 half-kings? If it were so easy, the immortal city would have been gone a long time ago. How could it last for 10,000 years? Yi Qian slashed away the peak-level amethyst venerable and returned to Han Fei in the blink of an eye. Han Fei said, "Go." The amethyst half-venerable didn't stop her. However, the moment the three of them stepped into the teleportation array, he stabbed the amethyst spear in his hand at the teleportation array with all his strength. Bam, bam, bam. The spear stabbed to the end. Unfortunately, it failed to completely penetrate the 100-layered defense array that Han Fei had set up. Then, the second spear stabbed over and directly blew up the teleportation array. On the human front, the rear of the first island happened to be the last side of the human front. Long Shi and the others had already returned. Everyone saw that the teleportation array was unstable and a lot of space cracks were bursting out of it. Just when everyone was nervous and realized that there was something wrong with the teleportation array, a ball of light rushed out of the teleportation array. At that moment, Han Fei was covered with wounds, and Wang He was dripping with blood and didn't seem to be alive. Yi Qian, on the other hand, was completely fine. Han Fei looked at Yi Qian, only to hear Yi Qian say, "Too many venerables have died there. I have enough death energy." Han Fei nodded slightly, but then he glanced at Wang He coldly and threw a holy light technique at him. Han Fei roared, "Your battle is a mess." Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1581. Originally, in Han Fei's plan, this battle was absolutely a perfect sneak attack. Han Fei didn't set off alone but had planned it with Jin Tong and brought him along. Therefore, in Han Fei's opinion, how could anyone die when even a fake king had been dispatched? At this time, Han Fei was very angry, very angry. Han Fei roared, "You outnumber us twice as many people. Why did some of you die? What I want is to kill the enemy quickly. As a venerable, I have the advantage in numbers. Why don't we work together to kill them? 2 or 3 people surround one. Since we can't take them down, why don't we fight 5 or 6 against one? I didn't create time for you to fight steadily, it's for you to kill the venerables." Han Fei was furious and cursed, making these venerables speechless. Of course, there were many people who were conflicted and resentful. After all, anything could happen on the battlefield. Long Shi stood up. "General Han, that person's name is Jing Shi. He is a special kind of creature among the sea demon venerables. He can be regarded as a special half-fish and half-grass creature that can shake souls for a short time. So, when he self-detonated, the 3 of them were restrained and fell into the void storm together." Han Fei glared at him with an unfriendly expression and shouted, "Are you accusing me of being unreasonable?" Long Shi lowered his head. "I dare not." Long Shi didn't feel ashamed to lower his head in front of Han Fei. After all, as soon as they passed through the teleportation array, Han Fei killed a venerable with a sword. All of them knew that venerable won. Even a super powerhouse at the peak level of the venerable realm was killed by Han Fei with a sword. This kind of strength was indeed convincing, and they didn't have the right to question it at all. Han Fei said coldly, "I know that your combat power won't be much higher than these sea demon venerables. However, if you go up, just like Hua Meng, drag the enemy to self-detonate and create an excellent opportunity for your companions to kill the enemy. Even if you can't kill the enemy won't seize the opportunity to counterattack. You have been trapped in the cage for thousands of years and should be fighting every day, far more ferocious than the outside world. But today, I don't see your bravery at all." Yi Qian was fine, but Long Shi and the others were scolded by Han Fei. As soon as he opened his mouth, he blew himself up. Han Fei's way of thinking was indeed different from ordinary people. In fact, if one self-destructed in an evenly matched battle, their strength would be greatly reduced after their rebirth, and they would often not even have the chance to escape. Therefore, ordinary venerable ones would not be willing to do that. Everyone felt that this battle was too rushed. They didn't even know who the enemy was or what kind of enemy they were. Therefore, he could only react on the spot when he saw the enemy. At this moment, Han Fei spoke frankly and praised Hua Meng's approach. Indeed, given that Hua Meng had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, if he followed his plan to kill his enemies, he would definitely be able to kill 4 of the 8 early-stage venerables. He might be able to take them all down. In short, the current situation wouldn't have happened, where he would trade 2 for 2 with the other party. Buzz, the void trembled, and a silhouette quietly appeared. Jean Tong appeared in front of everyone. Seeing Jean Tong, everyone's hearts trembled. They bowed and greeted, "Honorable King." Jean Tong waved his hand casually. "Today's battle is over. You can return to Firestone Island first." Yi Qian glanced at Han Fei and Jean Tong and then said to the others, "Everyone, follow me back." After everyone left, Jean Tong smiled casually. "You want to attract the Black Killer Snail King through this battle? Then, you want the Beast Island to support us? I think it's very likely. But a skinny dragon is still bigger than a snake. The number of venerables in Black Blood City far exceeds that of the Immortal City. If the Beast Island doesn't join the battle, we'll be in a very passive position. Are you sure you can influence the Beast Island? The Immortal City and the Beast Island have been estranged for a long time." Han Fei's ferocious look disappeared in the blink of an eye. He said with a smile, "I don't think the Black Killer Snail King will come in the battle just now. He needs to put on a show first. Otherwise, a cautious man like him wouldn't take such a risk. As for the Beast Island, I trust them. The Black Killer Snail King has 2 battlefronts. He can't besiege the Immortal City with both of them." Jean Tong said, "Although I'm not sure if the Black Killer Snail King will come, he will be very fast if he wants to. Besides, your people have all been exposed tonight. Do you want them to go to the front tomorrow?" Han Fei slightly shook his head. "I have my own arrangements. Both sides must be on the highest alert for today's sneak attack. It's impossible for us to sneak attack again. If the Black Killer Snail King comes, the battle will be much easier." As he spoke, Han Fei suddenly remembered something. "Right, do you have resources like dragon tendons?" Jean Tong nodded slightly. "Yes. How many do you want?" 3 or 5 will be enough." Jean Tong asked. "Wang He, how did you know that he's a spy? Even I can't see anything wrong with him. How did you see through him at first glance?" Han Fei said, "It's a unique secret technique of the Yin-Yang Heaven. He's possessed a human and has been used to human combat techniques and arts for a long time. Naturally, he can't see anything wrong with him." Jean Tong said, "What? Since it's a unique secret technique of the Yin-Yang Heaven, I won't ask further. However, a spy at the Venerable Realm can be very dangerous. You'd better get rid of him immediately after making use of him." Firestone Island. The entire Firestone Island was in an uproar. It was no secret that all the venerables on the island had disappeared. The island was only so big. Usually, the venerables would see each other all the time. But tonight, they were destined to be sleepless. Cracks appeared frequently in the sky. In just 10 minutes, 7 consecutive roars sounded, and a total of 7 venerables had died. In this case, if the venerables on Firestone Island were still there, they would have come out to watch the show. Therefore, many people's first reaction was that Han Fei and the others had taken action. Besides, they sent out all the venerables at once. Above the sky, a rain of blood poured down. 7 venerables died one after another. Could they be the venerables of the sea demons? The crowd was still talking about it. Someone sighed. "I hope these fallen venerables are all from Black Blood City." Someone was not optimistic. "How can it be so easy? The sea demons are not idiots. They won't let us kill them." Someone asked Wenju, "Wenju, you are so close to Master Longxi. Didn't Master Longxi reveal anything to you?" Wenju shook her head. "I don't know. This is a battle between venerables. I'm not even half a venerable. How could he reveal anything to me?" Hum, the void shook, and for a moment, Longxi and the other venerables walked out of the void. On Firestone Island, many people gathered around. However, most of Longxi and the others were gloomy. This time, it was really embarrassing. 24 people attacked, and the opponent only had 12 people, but the result was 2 for 2. Who would have the face to ask for credit? It could be said that this victory was basically won by Han Fei alone. He killed 3 venerables and a peak-level venerable. With such strength, if someone told them that Han Fei was not a half-king, they wouldn't believe it. Seeing that there were many people around, Yi Qian immediately shouted, "Everyone, return to your positions. Those who should be cultivating, go cultivate." However, a few exalted realm experts were missing, and this situation was noticed at the first possible moment. No matter how low their cultivation was, they were not lower than explorers. It would be strange if they couldn't even count the number of venerables. Someone was secretly shocked. "Grand Venerable Cloud Sky is missing." Someone exclaimed, "Grand Venerable Cloud Sky, Venerable Li Mang, Venerable Chen Quan, and Marshal Han haven't returned. What? Did this operation fail?" Someone was shocked. Could it be that the result of this battle was 4 for 3? Even Grand Venerable Han Fei was killed? Hua Meng shouted, "What the hell are you talking about? Marshal Han and Grand Venerable Cloud Sky are busy outside." Phew, as soon as Hua Meng shouted, many people breathed a sigh of relief. That was really scary. They thought to themselves, Commander Han is so powerful, how could he die so easily in a battle that only lasts for 30 breaths? However, some people keenly noticed that there were loopholes in Hua Meng's words. Han Fei and Lu Yuntian were fine, but what about Li Mang and Chen Quan? The void shook, a void crack was torn open, and Han Fei walked out of it. Everyone, including Long Shi and the others, looked at Han Fei. Han Fei shouted, "Attention, everyone! Tonight, I will lead all the venerables on the island to the sea monster camp and kill a peak-level venerable sea monster." As Han Fei spoke, he threw the broken corpse of the peak-level venerable to the ground. Countless people exclaimed at the sight of the giant flying fish carcass. Yi Qian said, "This is a peak-level venerable sea monster, Li Fei." Many explorers looked at this body that was more than 3,000 meters long curiously. Even though it had died, the strong demonic energy on its body still shocked countless people, and even their legs couldn't help trembling. Han Fei continued, "I killed a peak-level venerable. I killed a peak-level intermediate venerable. And I killed 2 beginner venerables. This is our achievement today." Under everyone's shocked gazes, Han Fei's voice slowed down and he said solemnly, "However, in this battle, although we won a great victory, we also lost 2 human venerables who were involved in the void storm and died on the spot." Han Fei's tone suddenly changed and his tone was cold, making Long Shi and the others blush. In front of these explorers, Han Fei naturally didn't mention the specific battle situation. Of course, they knew how badly they had done in this battle. They also understood that Han Fei said this to boost morale. Morale could be boosted but not destroyed. Only then did they understand why Han Fei could be the commander. Because Han Fei could control the war. In fact, in this ambush, Han Fei was brave and resourceful. It was impossible to go deep into the enemy's territory without courage. It was a great strategy to achieve such a result in the enemy's territory and even have a numerical advantage. With such a brave and resourceful commander, why should the human side be afraid to fight? Han Fei shouted, "War has always been so cruel. As long as the enemy is still there, people around you will constantly die. Put away your grief, take out your courage, and dare to fight to the death in battle. Every victory you win is a victory for the human race. I hope that you can carry on the victory to the end in the future. Even if you have to fight to the last person, even if you are unarmed, use your bodies to die with the enemy." Han Fei didn't talk about the battle process of the other venerables. Han Fei specially talked about Hua Meng's battle process, which was commendable for his courage. How could there be no sacrifice in killing the enemy? As the saying went, injuring 1,000 enemies, injuring 800 soldiers. This was a helpless move. If Han Fei didn't take this path, he could simply cultivate. It didn't matter even if he hid alone in the end of the world. Unfortunately, Han Fei was the master of the yin-yang heaven. Even in this cage, everything Han Fei did was what he should do. Swish, Han Fei put away Li Fei's corpse and then threw out another corpse. Many venerables exclaimed, "Is this Yu Jinghuan?" Han Fei said, "Everyone on Firestone Island, listen up. Tonight, cook the demons and eat their meat. Let's fight again in the future." Chapter 1582. Of all the people present, Wang He was the most worried. Just now, the moment he entered the void, he had told them all the information he could immediately, including Han Fei's identity, Han Fei's true strength, Han Fei's apocalyptic divine technique, and the 100,000 explorers who had been cured on Firestone Island. As for the rest of the information, he didn't know. On the other hand, the sea demons encouraged Wang He to continue hiding. After all, those who fought with Wang He were only mid-level venerables, who had no right to order Wang He to do this and that. However, 5 venerables of the Black Blood City were slaughtered by Han Fei, which made Wang He extremely resentful. There was no doubt that Han Fei was strong. For the first time, he couldn't go to the Battle of the Venerables, nor could he send a message, which led to the death of 2 venerables. This time, although he went to fight, the whole battle only lasted for 10 minutes, and he only had time to send some messages before he was immediately dragged back. In order to continue hiding, Wang He put on a show, and in the end he fought 1 against 2 and was bleeding all over. Now Han Fei, this bastard, even wanted to cook the sea demons. He was simply the biggest bastard in history. Of course, unlike Wang He, the others here were all happy, including Yi Qian. Although he was an immortal and didn't need to eat. But in any case, today was the best battle he had in so many years. Although he didn't fight for long in this battle, the more enemies died, the more he felt comfortable. Besides, he also inhaled a lot of dead air. When the scene was already out of control, Han Fei perceived and said to Long Shi, "When Lu Yuntian comes back, tell him to go to the General Mansion to find me." Long Shi nodded. "Yes, General Han." While the outside world was studying how to cook the sea demons, Han Fei entered the General Mansion. After checking, Han Fei found that his soul power had increased slightly, by more than 800 points in total. Han Fei couldn't help but laugh. This 9-palace ruler of Providence is indeed a holy artifact. It can calculate everything so accurately. If he hadn't changed his luck, the result would be a flat hexagram. Maybe he would even lose some soul power. In general, he had exchanged a wisp of chaotic energy for more than 800 points of soul power. He still had to kill 3 venerables to make up for the distance between his soul returning to its peak. They had won this battle, but they had only killed 5 enemies, which did not give the humans any advantage. However, this battle was still helpful to Han Fei. Although he didn't polish his foundation much, he did feel that he had made great progress when he fought with the Half-King realm powerhouses. This was not a matter of foundation, but a matter of confidence in battle. Even Han Fei himself didn't know that he could really compete with a Half-King without borrowing any strength. This kind of huge psychological achievement was no less effective than polishing one's foundation. Unfortunately, time was limited now. Even if the power of vow he had saved was enough for him to push his strength to the peak of the intermediate venerable, it would still take time. But now that the sneak attack was over, there was no time left. The next step was to see how the Black Killer Snail King would react. The old turtle said, "If the fake king really comes, I'm afraid your subordinates are not qualified, right?" Han Fei said, "King against king, general against general, soldier against soldier. The Black Killer Snail King will be dealt with by the Golden Boy. What I need to think about is how to win the battle." The old turtle said, "You know, if the Black Killer Snail King really comes, not to mention how the Demon Beast Alliance will deal with it, maybe Black Blood City will be heavily damaged by the Demon Beast Alliance. However, the Immortal City won't be any better. There are only about 100 of them here." Han Fei grinned. "That's a lot. How many people do you think the Black Killer Snail King will bring?" Han Fei remembered that according to the old goat's calculation, the number of venerables in Black Blood City was 287. However, some died in the Yin-Yang Heaven, some in the Life and Death Gorge, and some in the Immortal City. Han Fei calculated and found that there should be 263 venerables left. As for whether there were other new venerables, Han Fei didn't know. In terms of quantity, the number of venerables in Black Blood City was far greater than in the Immortal City, more than twice. Of course, in a defensive battle, the Immortal City also had its own advantages. At least, although the relationship between humans and the Beasts Island wasn't good, they had a common enemy, which was gratifying. Since Black Blood City could divide its forces, the battle line would be tight. The Black Killer Snail King only had one chance to fight. If it wasn't handled well, Black Blood City would suffer heavy losses. In the past, the Immortal City was much weaker than Black Blood City. However, there was Han Fei now. Han Fei could save people and restore many people's strength to their peak. This was very meaningful for the next battle. However, on the battlefield, Han Fei didn't have time to save people, except to give humans a long time to catch their breath. Han Fei calculated carefully. Did Black Blood City want to launch a blitzkrieg? Probably not. After all, the Beast's Island had already received his notice. The situation between the enemy and himself was obviously advantageous to his side. However, in a battle, the leader's strategy was the most important. If his arrangement wasn't good, even if the humans and the Beast's Island had some advantages, they would be wasted. Of course, all this was to put the Immortals in the human camp. And Han Fei clearly learned from Jin Tong and Netherworld that once they turned to the Immortals, they couldn't be called humans anymore. The old turtle also said, "Don't ask about the secrets of the Immortals." Behind these people, there was a force that even he didn't dare to mention. It was the old turtle's words that made Han Fei start to pay attention to the Immortals. A creature that grew up on the aura of death, which could almost cover the entire sea. How big were the territories of the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven? And how powerful were the forces behind the Immortals? So, why should Han Fei care about the Immortals? If the entire Immortal City was filled with Immortals, Han Fei wouldn't dare to open this cage at all. Otherwise, if only the beasts could be trusted, it would be him who would have a headache. Jin Tong said that the Immortal City would stand on his side, but that was only his promise. At this time, Han Fei led more than 300,000 explorers and more than 20 venerables. However, compared to the Immortals, this was nothing. Of the 7 big islands on the front line, 4 were basically occupied by the Immortals, and 3 were the land of the living. In the battle with the sea demons, it seemed that he had to make full use of the power of the Immortals. At this moment, Long Shi outside the door said, "General Han, Grand Venerable Yuntian is here." Han Fei said leisurely, "Come in." Lu Yuntian had mixed feelings. Tonight, in just 30 minutes, 7 Immortals died in a row, which really scared him. It could be said that the situation of the Immortal City seemed to have changed since Han Fei came. In just a few days, including the human side, 9 Immortals had died. This speed of death was unprecedented. At this rate, who knew what the Immortal City would be like in a year? Lu Yuntian entered the general's mansion. Seeing Han Fei sitting cross-legged, he asked directly, "What do you need me to do?" Han Fei smiled faintly. "Later, you have to cooperate with me to put on a show. You can imagine. I'll kick you out of the general's mansion before you finish what I arranged for you. After you go out, you need to pretend to be angry and wait for Wang He to come to you. Remember, you must put on a good show. Your performance may be related to the life and death of all the venerable realm powerhouses here." "Wow!" Lu Yuntian took a deep breath, his eyelids twitching wildly. Han Fei's words were too serious, which put a lot of pressure on him. Lu Yuntian had to believe Han Fei. Because this man was too evil. He could even sneak attack the sea demon camp. Was there anything else he couldn't do? The first time he killed a venerable, Han Fei did it. The second time he sneak attacked the sea demon camp, Han Fei also did it. As for this time, Lu Yuntian had no reason not to believe Han Fei's plan. And this time, no one came to stop Han Fei. Han Fei was like a special envoy of the Immortal City, who could do whatever he wanted. Outside, Wang He was very nervous. He was also eating meat. Yes, in order not to arouse the slightest suspicion, he was also devouring Yu Zhenghuan's flesh and blood. After all, sea demons could kill each other. While he was happily devouring the fish, Wang He was thinking, if there comes a day when I fall to the point of death, I must not die in such a manner. I must self-destruct at the first opportunity. While Wang He and the others were eating, they suddenly saw the general's mansion explode. Lu Yuntian was sent flying out of Han Fei's door. After landing, his feet slid on the ground, bleeding from his 7 orifices. Yi Qian appeared immediately, and at the same time, a dead air blocked the sight of those explorers. Wang He and the others naturally came to the general's mansion as soon as possible. They looked dumbfounded, not knowing what was going on inside. Seeing Lu Yuntian's gloomy face, someone asked, "Grand Venerable Yunnan, what's going on?" In the general's mansion, Han Fei walked out with a gloomy face. Han Fei didn't even look at Lu Yuntian and shouted, "Yi Qian, come with me to the front line. Long Shi, keep an eye on Firestone Island." Han Fei took Yi Qian and left quickly. Lu Yuntian also snorted coldly and left, but he didn't leave the island. Seeing this scene, Wang He immediately thought, it seems that Lu Yuntian didn't complete what Han Fei asked him to do. That's why Han Fei was so angry. Wang He immediately said to Long Shi and the others, "Don't let the people below know about this. You all stay here. I'll go and see what's going on." Everyone understood Wang He's words. He just wanted to comfort Lu Yuntian. The venerables couldn't help but sigh, thinking to themselves, Han Fei is actually good in all aspects, but his way of being a commander is too domineering and difficult to get close to. In a corner of Firestone Island, Wang He caught up. "No, what's wrong with you? Why are you in such a bad mood?" Lu Yuntian thought to himself, "Wang He, there's really something wrong with you." Lu Yuntian said with a sullen face, "Old Wang, you said you didn't want to stay in Han Fei's team. Fuck, I should have believed you long ago. If I have the ability to get us out of here, will you do it?" Chapter 1583. Lu Yuntian knew that his bad relationship with Han Fei would end with Wang He's appearance and death. At this moment, Lu Yuntian was very angry. He was beaten by Han Fei in front of so many venerables. "Why can't I tolerate it?" Lu Yuntian scolded Han Fei. As he spoke, Lu Yuntian and Wang He drank and chewed on the meat. Then, he said in a low and cold voice, "You should know that you are the most glorious people tonight. You have attracted the attention of all the venerables of Immortal City and Black Blood City. Today, there should be a lot of demi-kings and peak stage venerables, right?" Wang He nodded solemnly. "More than a lot." The 3 demi-kings were intercepted by the Golden Boy Venerable Wang alone. In addition to the peak stage venerable Han Fei killed, Yi Qian fought another peak stage venerable, and there should be at least 3 more peak stage venerables behind. All of this happened in a short span of 30 breaths. At that time was tight. Can you imagine? Wang He was not exaggerating. If Han Fei had stayed for 1 more minute, the Sea Demon's follow-up peak stage venerables would have arrived. At that time, it was hard to tell who would win. Han Fei was fast in speed and execution. At that time, he wanted to stall for time. However, Han Fei caught him and brought him back. He had experienced Han Fei's terrifying speed. "Humph," Lu Yuntian sneered. "Do you think you are the only ones taking risks? You don't know that I am also taking risks. I also went deep into the enemy's territory, but I was in much more danger than you." Wang He was shocked. "Seriously? So dangerous? Did you encounter a peak stage venerable?" Lu Yuntian sneered. "Bullshit. Do you think you are the only ones who went to the rear of the Sea Demon's camp through the teleportation array?" Wang He was puzzled. "But you went too? Where did you go?" Lu Yuntian sneered. "Of course, the Sea Demon camp closest to the first island of our human race. That is, the camp where Han Fei stirred up a storm." Wang He was shocked. "No, how dare you?" At that time, everyone was fighting crazily. As Wang He spoke, he went silent. His heart skipped a beat. Han Fei has an ulterior motive. Tonight it was said to be a sneak attack, but in fact, it was just a cover. In fact, Han Fei's purpose was to attract all the venerables in the Sea Demon camp through himself and them. With one move, the rear of the Sea Demon camp was completely empty. And Lu Yuntian took the opportunity to go to the Sea Monster camp. As for how, Han Fei was a master of arrays. Wherever he went, he left behind a teleportation formation. This was a piece of cake. As long as Lu Yuntian was prepared in advance and brought Han Fei's formation map, when the first crack appeared, he could teleport to the Sea Demon camp according to Han Fei's deployment. Then, he secretly set up a formation, of course. These spirit arrays were all interconnected, so it wouldn't be a problem for a great senior to arrange a spirit array in advance. The problem was Lu Yuntian did not do it well. Wang He was shocked. What a deep scheme. While everyone was still immersed in the joy of killing 5 monsters in a row, Han Fei was already planning for the next step. Wang He did not even dare to imagine that he had managed to kill 5 supremacies with just a sneak attack. Then did Han Fei ask Lu Yuntian to secretly set up a trap? How many people was he going to kill? Wang He couldn't help but think, although only 100,000 of the 300,000 people on Firestone Island were cured, it wouldn't be a problem for this small number of people to destroy a corner of the sea demon camp. Wang He concluded that with Han Fei's scheming, next time it would definitely be more than just 5 supremacies. Who would have thought that Han Fei would sneak attack the same place twice in a row? The only thing that Han Fei didn't understand was that it would take time to kill a venerable. If Han Fei wanted to quickly slaughter the sea demon venerables in that camp, he couldn't do it alone. This time, Jin Tong had already taken action in person. Next time, in addition to the more than 20 venerables on Firestone Island, there would probably be many peak-level venerables and advanced venerables. In the rear of the Immortal City, even the Netherworld Half-King might come out in person and lead the entire Immortal City. Thinking of this, Wang He felt his scalp go numb. What a cunning scheme this was. If they were fucking tricked, more than 5 supremacies would die. At least 10 supremacies would die. If the Black Killer Snail King was stalled by Jin Tong, more than 15 supremacies might be killed in the battle. Wang He quickly calculated the possibility of the sea demon venerables dying in his mind. After careful calculation, Wang He was almost sure that with Han Fei's thunderous means, he could definitely kill more than 10 sea demon venerables in one fell swoop. No, I have to send this message back. Otherwise, Black Blood City will suffer heavy losses. Hiss, Wang He sucked in a breath of cold air and said slowly, what a deep scheme. Since he has already calculated it, why did he just? Lu Yuntian sneered. Why were you kicked out just now, right? It's mainly because your battle time is too short. I only have 30 seconds. In case the Sea Demon Half-King returns quickly, I have to quickly bury the teleportation array he prepared in advance in these 30 seconds. But I'm not familiar with the terrain on the Sea Demon's side. The place where the teleportation array is buried may be a bit problematic. Maybe it's close to a Sea Demon Valley. Because of that, he kicked me out. Son of a bitch. Wang He secretly remembered it. Before he could think about it, Lu Yuntian grabbed the wine jar and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Old Wang, tell me the truth. You are the shrewdest of all these people. I know that Han Fei is extraordinary, but think about it. He entered the cage easily and found us easily. What does it mean? Wang He, huh? What does it mean? Lu Yundan, it means that this person may indeed be here to free the cage. He may have a way to break the cage. What? Wang He couldn't help but exclaim, how is that possible? Shoo. Lu Yundan shushed Wang He and said, why is it impossible? Don't shout. I accidentally overheard his conversation with Exalted Yi Qian the other day. They mentioned something about the cage. Unfortunately, Han Fei was too keen and immediately set up a soundproof array. Wang He said in a low voice, do you think it's possible? Lu Yuntian sneered. Why not? Han Fei is not an ordinary person at all. Have you ever seen a middle-level venerable who can kill a peak-level venerable casually? This was done in front of all of you. I was the first to believe him when he said he could kill a demi-king. However, Han Fei is not omnipotent. He can kill enemies, but he may not be able to protect his own people. When Han Fei really confronts the Black Killer Snail King, strong masters like him are not easy to kill. But what about people like you and me? In his eyes, we may not be a problem at all. If we die, we may die. Gulp. Wang He pretended to swallow and looked at Lu Yuntian's depressed face, only to see that Lu Yuntian's eyes gradually became clear. After 10 minutes or so, Lu Yuntian sneered and said, just now, before I came back, I specially went to find Demi-King Chinema. He is my childhood playmate, and we have been friends for many years. I can ask him to dig me out? Old Wang, Don't blame me for not reminding you. If I stay here with Han Fei's character, there will be a life and death battle later. Instead of that, it's better to wait until he breaks the cage, and then we can enjoy the scenery outside. Seeing Lu Yuntian's expression, Wang He knew that Lu Yuntian had made up his mind to escape. It turned out that Lu Yuntian was also a schemer. He didn't want to fight, but hoped that Han Fei could win the battle as soon as possible, destroy Black Blood City, and go out to enjoy his life. Wang He sneered in his heart. You fucking people, all of you deserve to die. You think of ways to plot against my Black Blood City every day. Since I'm here, I'm sure you won't succeed. Wang He immediately pretended to be tempted. Old Lu, Demi-King Qi, can you help me out? To tell you the truth, I really can't stand that Han Fei's temper. Lu Yundan patted Wang He on the shoulder and said, Old Wang, during this time, you are the only one who came to comfort me. I know what to do. We human beings always have a lot of thoughts. Alas, I can only say that people of different principles cannot make plans together. Han Fei can do whatever he wants. We brothers have to find a way to survive in the future. Only by surviving can we have a chance to see the scenery outside. The next morning, Han Fei and Yi Qian had already returned. No one knew what they were doing. However, the next morning, Han Fei began to heal the vitality of the explorers whose foundations hadn't recovered yet. Everyone knew that Han Fei must have absorbed a lot of life force after killing so many Grand Monarchs in this battle. That was why he had the confidence to heal them. In one morning, Han Fei had only healed a few thousand people, the void trembled, and a few experts walked out from the void. Among them, there were 2 high-level venerable immortals. Han Fei looked back and couldn't help frowning. He said coldly, Who is it? The middle-aged man smiled lightly. The 6th island, Qi brother Han. It's an honor to meet you. Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, Oh? So it's Demi-King Qi. What brings you here? Qi said, Let's not beat around the bush. Lu Yuntian is my brother since I was a child. Since I'm under Brother Han's command, you should treat me normally. But Brother Han is stubborn. I know my brother is having a hard time, so I'm here to ask for him. I heard that Brother Han is closer to the immortals, so I and the Golden Boy Venerable asked 2 experts to help you. What do you think? At that moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Lu Yuntian. Hua Meng even said, Isn't this a little too much? Everyone was a little angry. Although Han Fei was a bit domineering, he was definitely a leader worthy of respect and admiration. Lu Yuntian secretly found someone to help him? Isn't this a little too petty? Han Fei looked at Lu Yuntian coldly and said in a cold voice, Then thank you, Brother Qin. Since you don't care about me, get out of here. Lu Yuntian's face turned red, and Qi gave him a look. Lu Yuntian said, Demi-King Qi, Wang He and I have a close relationship. What do you think? Qi face changed slightly. Yunnan, don't go too far. Wang He's heart skipped a beat. Lu Yuntian and Qi grew up together, but he was not familiar with him. Was it too hasty for him to go out and inform Qi? However, Han Fei suddenly looked at Wang He, and Wang He couldn't help swallowing. Han Fei said, Humph, who else wants to leave? Today, get out of here as well. Today, I'm telling you if you don't care about me, just tell me. I won't force you to stay. However, this kind of trick can't be used again. I'll give you another chance. Puss. Chapter 1584. In the end, Lu Yuntian and Wang He left. In the eyes of the others, Qin didn't intend to take Wang He out. However, Han Fei had said it in an extremely domineering manner. Qin was a demi-king and certainly wouldn't lower his head to Han Fei. So, if Han Fei let Wang He go, he would leave with his people. However, except for these 2 people, no one else was going to leave. Everyone knew what happened in the battle last night. Asking to leave at this time? They didn't have the face to do that. Besides, even if they wanted to leave, someone had to take them in. Although Qin came to ask Han Fei for Wang He, his tone was relatively straightforward. However, he originally only wanted Lu Yuntian. In order to get one person, he brought 2 high-level venerable immortals to Han Fei, This meant that Qin Emo didn't intend to offend Han Fei. Therefore, except for Lu Yuntian and Wang He, no one else left. After leaving Firestone Island, Lu Yuntian and Wang He seemed to be much more relaxed. Qin Emo smiled and said, "Old Lu, because of you, I have fallen out with Han Fei this time. You owe him a big favor." Lu Yuntian smiled and said, "Old Qin, don't say that. I promise I will hunt a sea demon venerable for you. Otherwise, you can punish me." Qin Emo laughed. "Old Lu, there's no joking in the army. If you say so, I will take it seriously." Lu Yuntian smiled and said, "Of course. Give me some time. I will look for one." Wang He followed on the side and sneered in his heart. "Hunt a venerable? When I land and deliver the news, Han Fei's plan will be completely useless. By then, it will be time for me to return to Black Blood City." Black Blood City. In the place where the royal city was, the waves were surging and thunder was rumbling. The Black Helix King was furious, his face angry and cold. What a human Han Fei! Not only did he act arrogantly in the Yin-Yang heaven, but now that he is in the cage, he is still so arrogant. "I'm going to kill him." As soon as the Black Helix King's voice fell, a venerable said, "King, don't be impatient now. Han Fei must be up to no good to provoke us so blatantly. Our top priority now is not to lose our sense of propriety." The Black Killer Snail King said, "I've fought with that bastard Han Fei before. This man is extremely strange. His means and combat power are all extraordinary. Today, he was able to sneak attack a camp. Tomorrow, he would be able to ambush 2 places. How can this king sit still?" A venerable octopus said, "King, if you really want to fight, you have to at least make arrangements for the Life and Death Gorge. Once our army sets out, the Monster Beast Alliance will definitely make a move. You see, these past 2 days, the demonic beasts at the Life and Death Gorge are calling out to you more frequently. There are also some new faces that have been replaced. I'm afraid that the Life and Death Gorge has started to increase its manpower." The Black Killer Snail King stared at the octopus. "Are you saying that the Monster Beast Alliance has joined hands with the Immortal City?" The octopus said, "Not necessarily. If they could join forces, they would have done so long ago. Just look at that undying city, death energy overflowing the heavens. It can't even be considered human. The Monster Beast Alliance might not have a bad relationship with them, but if they really wanted to cooperate, they would have to fight on 3 fronts. As long as we talk to the Forest of Terror, there will be a war on all sides, and no one will be able to win." In addition to this octopus, another mermaid said, "Maybe we can wait a little longer. Don't forget, in Han Fei's camp, Wang He is our spy. Except for the 2 who died, Han Fei's forces, including himself, have 24. There are also 300,000 explorers. This person needs so many people, he can't just do nothing. He must have a purpose. Why don't we wait for Wang He to find a way to pass the important information to us?" Someone said, "Didn't Wang He say? Han Fei doesn't allow them to leave the island at all, and everyone is being monitored. This should be to prevent any information of the operation from leaking." Someone added, "It doesn't matter if we wait for another 2 days. Han Fei just ambushed our camp, and now everyone on the front line is already in a state of high alert. In this case, it is absolutely impossible for him to ambush us again. Didn't the king already arrange a half-king to go there?" The Black Killer Snail King said solemnly, "Okay, let's wait for another day. Let me tell you, even if the Demon Beast Alliance really launches an attack, we have to fight the Immortal City now. That kid, Han Fei, is too monstrous. He's actually grown to the mid-rank of the Exalt realm in a mere 3 years of time, and he even possesses the strength to fight a quasi-king. His growth speed is too terrifying. If we don't get rid of him now, even if I go in person in the future, I may not be able to." The Black Killer Snail King remembered that when he and Han Fei fought for the first time, Han Fei was only a half-king. "I believe that you will become a venerable in 3 years. I also believe that you are very talented, and your strength has improved a lot after becoming a venerable. You are stronger than ordinary beginner venerables. However, Han Fei has surpassed the beginner venerable and reached the intermediate venerable. This horrified the Black Killer Snail King. He had never heard of such a growth speed. While the Black Killer Snail King was discussing something, the void suddenly shook. Someone tore the void and came through. When that person appeared, who else could it be but Chao Xian? The Black Killer Snail King said angrily, "What's so urgent that you have to come here in person?" Chao Xian said weirdly, "My lord, Han Fei intends to launch another sneak attack." Huh. In an instant, everyone turned to look at Chao Xian with faces filled with disbelief. He just launched a sneak attack last night. Only half a day had passed, and he was going to launch another sneak attack? Steal his ironhead fish? Someone asked, "Chao Xian, where did you get the news? Is it a trap?" Chao Xian immediately said, "Wang He sent the news in person. He has found a way to get out of Han Fei's hands. After he came out, he sent the news through a special channel." Someone was confused. He came out? He just said he couldn't come out yesterday. Was he discovered? Chao Xian shook his head. "I thought so too at first, but after knowing what happened, I think it might be Han Fei's style. That's why I came back to tell you, my lord." The Black Killer Snail King said casually, "Tell me about it." Immediately, Chao Xian told him about how Han Fei broke into the Immortal City, demanded the ruling power, recruited the disabled venerables and explorers, and so on. When Chao Xian talked about Han Fei's extremely domineering character, the Black Killer Snail King nodded. This series of descriptions was exactly the same as that of the Han Fei he had fought before. Back in the war on the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei was not only cruel to sea demons but also to humans. The human supremacies did not even bat an eyelid when they said they would slaughter them. In the Battle of the Scattered Stars Island, blood flowed like a river, but this guy didn't care at all. What's more, this guy even sent more than 3,000 people to intercept the 800,000 troops. Is this really an idea that a human can come up with? After hearing Chao Xian's introduction, the Black Killer Snail King said affirmatively, "Yes, this character description fits Han Fei very well. Then before you came back, did you ask Li Santong to search for the place where the teleportation array was hidden?" Chao Xian immediately said, "I did. As soon as the news came back, we looked for it, but it was not the place that Wang He said. There was only a little human aura left in that place. The place that we found was definitely buried behind the campsite. It was somewhere further behind the campsite and had already escaped the detection range of the 3.5 King. According to Wang He, after Han Fei taught Lu Yuntian a lesson, he went out personally." The Black Killer Snail King's heart did a flip. Yes, others may not be able to sneak into the sea demon camp, but Han Fei could. Because he had the shadow doppelganger, a shadow doppelganger that was as strong as his real body. Suddenly, the Black Killer Snail King shouted, "Good, well done. Get ready to go to the Immortal City." Immediately, someone said, "King, would Han Fei really make such a hasty arrangement? Could this be a trap that he set?" The Black Killer Snail King grinned. "Impossible. I know him. Han Fei is a very bad person. He would definitely do such a thing. Besides, Wang He is a possessor, not a human who sneaked in with his real body. So, even if Han Fei has the means to see through his real body, as you said before, Han Fei saved Wang He in the end. Besides, even if Han Fei set a trap there, so what? Do you really think that undying golden boy can stop this king if this king personally goes?" The Black Killer Snail King stepped out of the throne and shouted, "Zhang Wuming Yuqianai, Snail Hun, I order you 3 half-kings to take 60 more venerables to the Life and Death Gorge. One of you go and inform the Forest of Horrors to strengthen their forces and restrain the Demon Beast Alliance. The rest of you, follow me to the Immortal City." The Black Killer Snail King was actually very shrewd. He probably knew that the Valley of Beasts would make trouble when they attacked the Immortal City. However, including Zhang Wuming and the others, there were a total of 6 half-kings and 130 venerables below the half-king level. It could be said that this was half of the current combat power of the Immortal City. As for the Immortal City, the Black Killer Snail King was confident that he would go there in person, plus the 5 half-kings here. He would also drive the 1,000 snail army to attack the front line of the Immortal City. Even if Han Fei had the power to fight a half-king, there was no reason for him to lose. Besides, he had mastered all of Han Fei's means. Maybe he could kill Han Fei in person to avenge his humiliation. What he didn't know was that on the great rift gorge of the Beast Island far away, Old Sheep suddenly opened his eyes. "Bah," Old Sheep said, "Elephant Tonton, Jiao Mengyue. There are hundreds of venerables on the island, and all of them are in the Death Gorge. Summon all the venerables scattered everywhere to go to the Forest of Horrors." At this moment, Old Sheep's eyes glittered. The war was about to begin. Chapter 1585. Even the Black Killer Snail didn't know that the moment he left Blackblood City, he was doomed to a tragedy. On the Firestone Island, after Wang He left, Han Fei spent half a day healing the foundation damage of all the remaining explorers here. When everyone was healed, Han Fei was almost worshipped as a god. This seemed impossible to them, but Han Fei did it. Han Fei clearly felt that a lot of power of hope had gathered on him. In fact, after the battle last night, Han Fei had gradually felt that the power of hope had increased. It shouldn't be just these people on the Firestone Island, but also some people on the front line. In fact, Han Fei did want to turn all the people on the island who were still growing and training into his believers or subjects. After healing everyone, Han Fei said that he was going to resume cultivation. In fact, Han Fei went to Forge the Universe to visualize the god's scaring painting. He had healed too many people at once. Although they were only explorers below the advanced level, Han Fei still felt a little overwhelmed. It hadn't been an hour in the outside world. The old turtle reminded him, "Jin Tong is coming to you." With a thought, Han Fei appeared in the marshal's mansion. With a wave of his hand, all kinds of barriers disappeared. Jin Tong appeared in the marshal's mansion and said in a childish voice, "It's been 4 hours since Wang He sent a message. You've consumed a lot of spiritual power. Is it okay?" Han Fei nodded slightly. "I have a way to recover. How's the arrangement of the array on the Forbidden Island?" "We can only lead people to the grassland. Last time something went wrong with the cage, my master must have wanted to break free, so he disappeared with the entire island. This obviously destroyed the structure of the cage itself, and the island was dragged back in the end. We don't know how to move it." Han Fei sighed slightly. "What a pity. If the Forbidden Island could be moved, as long as enough sea demons came to it, Senior Zhao Xianglong would have been able to resist the Purple Dragon Array on his own." Jin Tong naturally knew this. He was delighted when Han Fei proposed to include the Forbidden Island, namely the grassland, in the trap. Others might not know, but Jin Tong knew that the main reason why his palace master was suppressed in the grassland was because he had no energy. If the palace master were to appear in the outside world, he alone would be enough to destroy the entire cage. Han Fei's proposal was very good. If Han Fei could really lure the Black Killer Snail King over, perhaps he could really provide more energy for the palace master. But Han Fei knew in his heart that the Purple Dragon Array had been recovering all the time. Last time, Zhao Xianglong had not been able to escape. This time, he might only have a chance to break out of the cage if he killed dozens of venerable ones. The Jin Tong asked, "Are you sure the Black Killer King will come?" Han Fei shook his head. "I'm not sure. However, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't come, we'll sneak attack him again. I don't believe that if we kill 10 more of them, he will still be able to sit still." Jin Tong narrowed his eyes. "Don't underestimate the Black Killer Snail King. The Black Killer King's projection was defeated, but it didn't mean that he himself had been defeated. I've fought with this person before, and he is indeed very strong. If you measure it by your standards, maybe he's much stronger than you in all aspects, including strength." Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. "I know. He's a fake king. Although he didn't become a king, he got some benefits as a king. It's a matter of course that he's strong. I won't fight this person head-on. Anyway, it's all up to you." The Jin Tong. That night, the battle line between humans and sea demons was surging with people. On the 4th island, the explorer-level battles never stopped from morning to night. More than 50 explorers had died in the battle on both sides. This was the price that Han Fei paid for sneak attacking the Sea Demon camp yesterday. The Sea Demons of Black Blood City fought crazily and didn't retreat at all. In addition to the explorers, the Venerable Realm experts were also confronting each other. However, for a whole day, the experts on both sides didn't respond at all. It wasn't until the next night, the moment when Han Fei set off the day before, that Han Fei, who was recovering his spiritual power, suddenly opened his eyes. A day had passed, and the Nine-Palace Ruler of Fortune could be used again. If he hadn't been waiting for the Nine-Palace Ruler of Fortune, Han Fei might have taken action a long time ago. Because he suspected that the Black Killer Snail King was already here, and everything was going according to his plan. Therefore, at this moment, Han Fei couldn't wait to take out the Nine-Palace Ruler of Fortune and began to calculate. The void indicator began to move. Han Fei didn't know if it was his illusion, but he felt that the calculations seemed to take a little longer this time. However, when the indicator of the Nine-Palace Ruler of Fortune fell on the word desperate, Han Fei's face changed greatly. What the hell? Desperate already? Is there something wrong with my plan? Has the Black Killer Snail King found something? But that's not right. In this plan of his, he shouldn't fall into a situation where he had a slim chance of survival. Why would there be a desperate situation? However, after this desperate hexagram came out, Han Fei was 100% sure that the Black Killer Snail King had come, and it seemed to have brought a lot of power. It seemed determined to win. The old turtle said, "Do you have to change your luck as soon as possible?" Han Fei nodded. It had to be changed. Once the plan was made, the Black Killer Snail King had already arrived, so there was no reason to stop the plan. Han Fei still had 70 strands of chaotic energy, which he planned to save to continue changing the flow of time in Forge the Universe. However, such an earth-shattering battle, which could easily involve the death of dozens of venerables, was exactly what he needed. It was also a process for him to grow. Han Fei didn't even blink and threw out a wisp of chaotic energy. At first, the hopeless hexagram only moved a little. Han Fei couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth when he saw its strength. However, without hesitation, Han Fei threw out another 2 strands of chaotic energy. The indicator of the Nine-Palace Ruler moved again. However, to Han Fei's shock, the indicator still fell on the desperate hexagram. "Fuck you, again." Han Fei stood up with a swish. For the third time, he threw 3 strands of chaotic energy into the Nine-Palace Ruler of Fortune. The ruler mark of the 9 palaces Fortune ruler rotated again. Han Fei hurriedly said, "Brother, I'm so lucky. Your old mother, help me change this hopeless situation hexagram." Crack, crack, cracks this time, Han Fei saw that the indicator didn't fall on the desperate hexagram, but on the impermanence hexagram. Han Fei's heart sank. It seemed that according to the original hexagram, he was indeed doomed. A hexagram that could put him in such a state could only belong to an expert above the level of a demi-king. Or, it could be directly identified as the Black Killer Snail King. The old turtle said, "It seems that you're in a great crisis this time. You spent 6 strands of chaotic energy, but you only changed your luck to above impermanence. In other words, you might be in trouble, but you might be fine. The concept is too vague." Han Fei didn't even think about it. He didn't have any confidence at all. This battle was a big deal. How could he do it without confidence? Therefore, even though he spent 6 strands of chaotic energy, Han Fei still threw another strand of chaotic energy over. It was a pity that the chaotic energy wasn't absorbed after circling around the 9 palace ruler of fortune. Instead, a line of gilded words appeared in the air. "Once you become an impermanence, your luck will be immeasurable." Han Fei was speechless. Is that even possible? Once you become an impermanence, you can't change your luck anymore? Swish. After pondering for a moment, Han Fei left Forge the Universe. He couldn't wait to be killed. The change from desperate to impermanence indicated that the consequences of his scheme against the Black Killer Snail King were very serious. A moment later, Han Fei came to the Forbidden Island and ran to Death Valley without saying a word. The golden boy appeared immediately. "Why are you here?" Han Fei said in silence, "To borrow a place in Death Valley." The golden boy? The jade girl was also dumbfounded. She stood in the barrier and looked at Han Fei. There were a series of arrays under Han Fei's feet, one layer after another. Also, they were all defense arrays. The golden boy and the jade girl were dumbfounded. The golden boy was puzzled. Who are you guarding against? Han Fei said, the strong always leave some trump cards in reserve. You don't need to know. I'm just leaving some backup plans for myself. The golden boy and the jade girl didn't care. It was just some defense arrays. They didn't care. If Han Fei was really plotting against them, the defense arrays weren't difficult to break. They saw Han Fei summon a big octopus and lock it in a defense array. Little fatty, you stay here until I come to pick you up. You can't leave this place. Little fatty was slightly surprised. Don't you want me to follow you? Han Fei said, no. The golden boy, on the other hand, felt that something was wrong with Han Fei. He asked, are you not sure about the following plan? Han Fei shook his head. No, I'm very confident. This battle will definitely hurt the Black Killer Snail King's foundation. I'll make sure that he never dares to invade the immortal city again. Chapter 1586. After taking care of little fatty, Han Fei told Jin Tong about it, and the two of them went to their own places. On the Firestone Island, most of the explorers had just recovered their foundation and were consolidating it. Han Fei's voice spread all over the Firestone Island. Everyone, gather in front of the general's mansion in 10 seconds. Hum, hum, hum. After Han Fei's shout, cultivators and non-cultivators all got up and rushed to the general's mansion. The Firestone Island wasn't that big. It wouldn't take them more than 10 seconds to gather. No matter how slow they were, 3 to 5 seconds would be enough. At this moment, Han Fei stepped on the void and stood in the air about 30 meters high. Seeing that everyone was here, Han Fei said, everyone is here. Next, it could be today or it could be tomorrow, we will fight an unprecedented battle. This battle may change the situation of the immortal city. This battle will decide your life for the next 100 or even 1,000 years. This battle will let Black Blood City know the terror of the human race. Han Fei's voice was agitated and high-spirited. Everyone, you are all explorers at least. If you form an army, you will be invincible. I, Han Fei, can't guarantee that I can always lead you in the next battle. I can't guarantee that you will survive this battle, but I can guarantee that you will make Black Blood City tremble in fear and become the pride of the immortal city. You will grow and become stronger through this battle. The battle of the Venerables will be fought by me and the Venerables of the immortal city. And in the battle of the explorers, you will become the strongest force of the human race. Now, tell me, are you confident? Countless people looked solemn, their chests rising and falling. Although they didn't know what had happened outside, they knew that they were finally useful. In the past few days, many Venerables had fallen. It was time for the battle of the explorers to begin. In the past few days, many Venerables had fallen. It was about time for the war between explorers to begin. This probably meant that the immortal city and Heishuecheng were going to start a full-scale war. The illusions of mountains and rivers appeared and landed in front of the general's mansion. Han Fei shouted, everyone, walk into the illusions. I have a small world in my hands, and I can hide you in it. When I release all of you, just kill them for me. Han Fei shouted the word, kill, coldly. He grinned and said, I never told you that I'm actually a refiner. As long as you can bring back enough materials, I can refine more divine weapons for you. Apart from the sea-quelling bizarre treasure, I can't refine anything else. Even a superior-grade divine weapon is not difficult for me. Hiss, blacksmith? Oh my god, General Han can forge weapons? Why does Marshal Han know everything? So this is the so-called Heaven's favorite? Long Shi and the others were all horrified at this moment. A healing grandmaster, a formation grandmaster, a blacksmith grandmaster, and a god of war. In this world, How could there be such a super expert who could cultivate all kinds of magic? Others looked at Han Fei's small world in shock. This was the first time in their lives that they had seen someone who could carry a small world with him. Can this thing also be carried on one's body? But was it really okay to enter a small world so casually? Yi Qian said, "The situation is urgent. Efficiency is the most important thing. After entering the small world, don't run around." After that, Yi Qian looked back at Han Fei and walked in first. He needed to preside over the order in the small world. Yi Qian went in, and so did the other venerables. Han Fei glanced at Long Shi and said, "Your spear was destroyed, so I made a new one for you." Swish, a purple spear with a sharp saber light on its body and astonishing armor-piercing power stabbed right in front of Long Shi. Long Shi was stunned for a while and looked at Han Fei in surprise. In fact, she had a backup weapon, but the quality was not so good. But at this moment, the weapon that Han Fei casually threw out had reached the level of a high-quality divine weapon. This was already commendable. Not all junior venerables could have it. Long Shi immediately took a breath and bowed to Han Fei. "Thank you for the spear, General Han." "Okay." When all the venerable powerhouses entered the sea-quelling painting, all the explorers quickly formed a formation and entered the sea-quelling painting. After a moment, on the floating island in the sea-quelling painting. "Wow, is this a fairyland on Earth? There are small fish here, and they are only fishers. But everyone look, this is a huge garden. What kind of fruits are growing on it? It doesn't look like there is any spiritual energy." Someone exclaimed, "Look, this island is floating in the air. It's flying in the sky." Someone was shocked. "There's not even a gust of wind here." For a moment, countless explorers were stunned. Compared to the environment they lived in, the environment in the sea-quelling painting was indeed like a fairyland on Earth. In terms of scenery, this cage was naturally incomparable to the beauty of the scenery. But this was only because they hadn't been to the outside world. If these people went to the outside world, even if they went to a village, they would be shocked and feel as if they had gone to heaven on Earth. Not only these explorers, but even the venerables such as Long Shi were also amazed. Did the outside world look like this? It was so comfortable where there was no gust of wind. Suddenly, Han Fei's voice echoed in the sky. "All venerables, select all the half-venerables in your teams." During the battle, the venerables will not participate in the battle of the explorers. The half-venerables must play a leading role and cooperate with each other to fight together. All the venerables clasped their fists. "Yes, General Han." They knew that a war was about to break out. Of course, this was not the time to marvel at how good an island was. The human battlefront, the first island. Jin Tong stood in the void, looking up at the sky, as if he was resting with his eyes closed. The human battlefront, the sixth island. Lu Yuntian and Wang He were together. There was a challenge from the front, but the two ignored it. Qin Mo was meeting a guest. The guest was just an immortal, wearing a black robe and exuding a strong death aura, so he didn't attract anyone's attention. Wang He also said, "Old Lu, now the battlefront on both sides seems to be a bit fierce. It is said that the 7 major islands are all at war. More than 50 explorers are dying every day. When will this end?" Lu Yuntian glanced at Wang He and said lightly, "Although I don't like Han Fei, this person is indeed capable. I think the next great battle might be just around the corner." Wang He nodded slightly. "It should be." Wang He sneered in his heart. It shouldn't be long before the king arrives in person. Han Fei's plan would inevitably fail, and he might even die. And he had to find an excuse to escape. Once something happened to Han Fei, he would definitely be exposed. After all, Lu Yuntian only told him about sneaking into the sea demon camp. Lu Yuntian was not a fool. He would definitely suspect him immediately. On the other side, the immortal next to Qin Mo said leisurely, "Wang He is of no value now. It's time to kill him." Qin Mo's eyes lit up. "The Black Killer Snail King is already here?" Han Fei chuckled. "Let's see if he's here or not." Qin Mo smiled faintly. "Okay, I'll wait for you to fight." Black Blood City. Under the arrangement of the Black Killer Snail King, there were a total of 5 demi-kings outside the Immortal City. Originally, there were only 4 demi-kings. The demi-kings were distributed in the 2nd, 4th, and 6th camps. The 4th island had 2 demi-kings, which was completely arranged according to the human islands. However, this time, Wang He's intelligence transmission led to the arrangement of 3 demi-kings behind the 1st and 2nd camps. The demi-kings in the 4th and 6th camps were still just restraining the human demi-kings. And the 7th camp had no demi-kings at all. There were only 3 peak-level venerables guarding it. The rest were 3 advanced venerables, 5 mid-level venerables, and 7 beginner venerables, for a total of 18 venerables. After all, there were 7 camps within 800,000 kilometers of the sea, and each camp was only 100,000 kilometers apart. Normal internal assistance could arrive quickly. In particular, the Black Killer Snail King thought that Han Fei must have set a trap. Therefore, he planned to kill Han Fei as soon as the teleportation array was activated. Then, he would directly kill Han Fei from the 1st camp to the 1st island of the Immortal City. In terms of thinking, Han Fei and the Black Killer Snail King were exactly the same. However, the Black Killer Snail King was on the 1st island, and Han Fei was on the 7th island. The distance between them was about 700,000 kilometers. At this moment, Han Fei was quietly approaching the 7th camp of the Sea Demons. Although the Black Killer Snail King knew that Han Fei was a black fog, in this vast sea, where the void was full of cracks, who could really find a small mass of black fog? As he swam, the old turtle said, "There's no turning back now that this battle has begun. I'm afraid the arrays you set up can't stop the Black Killer Snail King." Han Fei said with a smile, "I'm not trying to stop him. This time, let's see which side is faster." After half an hour, Han Fei quietly found the 7th camp of the Sea Demons. Not close to the 7th camp, Han Fei quietly buried a relatively crude teleportation array and quickly sneaked into the hinterland of an undersea mountain range. Outside, the explorers were clamoring outside. A peak-level venerable and many beginner venerables were guarding outside. In the mountain range, Han Fei found the mansion of a middle-level venerable. Because they were all blocked by seals, Han Fei had to break the seals before he killed the venerables. But Han Fei didn't panic at all. These seals were no different from not having any for him. Han Fei, who was in a black fog, didn't need to breathe. He knew that once he slashed out, the venerable would die, and the war would begin. At that time, people would be plunged into misery and suffering. However, Han Fei didn't regret it. If he wanted to reverse the weak image of the Immortal City in the eyes of the Black Blood City and make the Black Blood City completely unable to suppress human beings, he had to make this slash. Swish! At that moment, the silver light broke the mountains, and the flesh was torn apart. Above the sky, thunder rumbled, cracks appeared, and blood rained. The work began. Chapter 1587. 10 years ago, in Han Fei's eyes, a venerable was unparalleled in the world. A venerable could overturn mountains and fill seas, fly underground, and be omnipotent. Millions of venerables would die when they were angry. These were all sensational rumors. Now that he thought about it, they were just SOSO. Han Fei killed a venerable so easily. He didn't even have to consider whether he had a chance to be reborn from a single drop of blood. If the other party's great path wasn't so special, the so-called rebirth from a single drop of blood would be meaningless. Just like the immortal seal in the past, when one reached this realm, one would realize that the so-called immortality was actually a relative term. Strong masters could kill you directly, but couldn't they kill you after you were reborn? Han Fei killed a mid-level venerable with a single slash. At this moment, the illusion of mountains and rivers unfolded directly in the hinterland of the mountain range. At this moment, Yi Qian led the team out. More than 20 venerables came out at the same time. This number was really terrifying. In fact, when Yi Qian and the others came out, they found that a group of black shadows came out first. Yi Qian and the others were very shocked. It turned out that they were not the only ones in Han Fei's small world. The Nether, who had been hiding in the rear and had cultivated the king's great path, was also here. At this moment, the Nether led 3 advanced venerables and another 11 middle-level venerables and suddenly appeared, shocking everyone. The moment Han Fei made a move, the other party's peak-level venerable had already rushed over. However, when the illusion of mountains and rivers appeared, and when the Nether Great Venerable showed up, the first thing the sea demon did was flee. He knew that at this time, as many as he could run away. Obviously, Han Fei's group didn't play by the rules at all. After all, they also had a communication conch. The peak-level venerable immediately shouted, "Everyone, run!" This was his first sentence. Before he could finish his second sentence, he was already shrouded by a dead aura. It was as if a pair of big hands stretched out from the depths of hell, instantly annihilating the voice and crushing the void. Han Fei shouted, "Everyone kill! Kill all the venerables here!" With the experience from the last time, this time, Long Shi and the others rushed to the nearby sea demon camps frantically, specifically hunting those junior venerables. There were only 18 sea demons in total. Yu Ming, Yi Qian, and the 3 high-rank venerable realm undyings that Yi Qian brought with her would find one. Han Fei and the other 11 mid-level venerables dispersed and attacked separately. On Han Fei's side, including himself, there were as many as 22 venerables. Now, with the addition of the 15 people that Nether had brought, whether it was in terms of cultivation realm or strength, they could completely suppress the venerable ones in the sea demon camp. On the frontline battlefield, the supremacies who were watching the battle immediately burned their blood and fled. Those Dao-seeking state sea demons still didn't know what was going on. First, a supremacy fell. Then, the supremacy on their side ran away. Running away without saying anything? What was the meaning of this? 1 breath. 2 breaths. On the 3rd breath, another terrifying crack appeared in the sky, and another supremacy fell. This was because there were only 3 venerables supervising the battle at the front line. 1 was an initial stage Exalt Realm expert, 1 was an intermediate stage Exalt Realm expert, and the last was a high stage Exalt Realm expert. On the 7th island, Han Fei had already made preparations. When he came here, he used a teleportation array. Han Fei needed to clear the front line and send in the army of human explorers. At this moment, the white mist found the high-level venerable realm sea demon, and the black mist directly slashed the initial stage venerable. When the initial stage venerable died, he didn't even know how he died. All he knew was that at the last moment he couldn't do anything, and even his soul was restricted. In the first camp of sea demons, the Black Killer Snail King and a group of venerables had already hidden in the dark, waiting for Han Fei to appear. What made the Black Killer Snail King uneasy was Han Fei, because Han Fei's cultivation speed was too fast and too strong. As long as Han Fei died with the nature of the Immortal City, the situation would immediately fall to the Black Blood City's side without much fighting. However, the Black Killer Snail King had been here for a long time, but there was still no movement from the teleportation array. Because the first island was controlled by the Immortals, the people on the front line didn't fight as fiercely as on the living islands, but they never stopped. Just when the Black Killer Snail King thought Han Fei didn't carry out the sneak attack plan and might have to wait, all of a sudden, the Black Killer Snail King looked up at the sky. With a rumbling sound, a red crack appeared. The blood-colored rain that hadn't stopped in the past few days grew heavier again. The Black Killer Snail King scanned the area with its senses but still couldn't find anything. Where did someone die? At this moment, the Black Killer Snail King couldn't stop its vigorous killing intent anymore. Even if the Black Killer Snail King was an idiot, it knew that it had been tricked. Han Fei, the bastard, must have taken action. Sure enough, after 2 seconds, a voice came from the communication snail. King, Han Fei and Netherworld have led a large number of venerables to sneak attack the 7th camp. We can't hold on any longer. Boom, boom, ho! The Black Killer Snail King was infuriated. It was tricked by Han Fei? Someone's expression changed greatly. Not good, my king. Wang He has been exposed. Someone said, King, the 7th island is not far away. Let's go there quickly. But someone immediately said, "No, only my king can reach the 7th island in 10 seconds. We can't let my king go to the dangerous place alone." The Black Killer Snail King shouted in a low voice, "We can't delay. Han Fei has been waiting for us to launch a sneak attack from there. In this case, follow me and slaughter the 1st island of the Immortal City." On the 7th island, Han Fei killed the mid-level Venerable again and stuffed them into Forge the Universe. While absorbing the souls of these two people, Han Fei stepped on the sea, reflecting the illusions of mountains and rivers. Han Fei said, "Everyone, attack and wipe out all the sea demons on the battlefield of the 7th island. Don't go to other battlefields. After this battle is won, immediately return to the front and wait for Lu Yuntian to take you in." Since yesterday, the 7 camps of sea demons had been sending more troops. Originally, there were only 200,000 sea demons in a place like the 7th camp, but many of them were at the sea spirit realm and the sea demon realm. In just one day, the number had soared to 300,000. Among them, there were many big conches, and the number of explorers had reached 100,000. Of course, among these explorers, there were also a lot of marine creatures. This was the usual tactic of the sea demons. They would push countless sea creatures into the battlefield, forcing them to fight whether they wanted to or not. The reason why Han Fei left all the explorers was to fight a battle of annihilation. How could it be easy to annihilate 100,000 explorers? In the entire Inyang sky and the Waterwood sky, whether human beings or sea demons, how many explorers could there be? The outside world was not a cage. Explorers were everywhere here, which was really rare in the outside world. Han Fei pondered. The 7th island and the home defense line. First of all, those marine creatures would definitely run away. After all, they were not an army. They were definitely not as efficient and united as the human side. This was the manpower that Han Fei could mobilize on the 7th island. After all, the entire Immortal City could be said to be divided into 7 battlefields. And the 7th battlefield, which had been cleaned up by Han Fei and the Netherworld, would be the safest battlefield. And the Undying on the 7th battlefield, after seeing Han Fei airdrop 300,000 people, immediately roared, "All troops, attack!" In fact, the Undying on the entire 7th island had already begun to gather at full speed on the 6th island when the first Undying died and began to fight. Wang He, who was guarding the 6th island with Lu Yuntian, suddenly saw the crack in the sky and was a little stunned. He was overjoyed at first. Then he heard Qin Mo's voice. "Don't look. It's the 7th island that died." Wang He suddenly turned around, only to see that Lu Yuntian and Qin Mo were looking at him quietly. At that moment, Wang He knew that he was exposed and that he was doomed. According to Han Fei and Jin Tong's original plan, the 7th island would be cleaned up as soon as possible. If the Black Killer Snail really came to the 7th island, there would be backup waiting for them. When Zhu happened to be in the formation. At this moment, the 300,000 troops airdropped, but when they rushed out of the void, there were still enemies in all directions. Kill! At that moment, the 300,000 troops were aggressive and their battle cries shook the sky. This was their first battle after so many years of illness. This was a battle that would determine the fate of the Undying City, so they couldn't be careless. For a moment, the sky was full of light and shadows, and the waves surged and then were blown away. Thousands of kilometers away, the waves were surging, and some were still in the sky, but the lower half had been beaten away. Han Fei's white mist body was fighting a mermaid. Han Fei had never known why the mermaids stayed in this barbarian land. By rights, there shouldn't be any mermaids on the Inyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. Or rather, these mermaids were only left from the ancient times. The mermaids were born to control water and condense ice. During the battle with Han Fei, the surrounding air, seawater, and even energy became very cold. Fortunately, Han Fei's white mist body was a special form of existence. Besides, Little White wasn't afraid of the cold at all, so Han Fei didn't feel very cold. At this moment, the mermaid was roaring, "Han Fei, my king is here. No matter how proud you are, you can't escape death in the end." Boom! Another red crack appeared in the sky, which meant that another sea demon had fallen. It had been 5 minutes since he and the others raided the 7th island, and 5 sea demons had fallen. This time, Han Fei felt that the others' speed was not bad. Although he had brought more than 30 sea demons, as the old turtle said, he couldn't expect everyone to be as fast as him. Therefore, it was already not bad that they could kill 3 sea demons in 5 minutes. The more sea demons they killed, the smoother the battle would be. Han Fei sneered at the mermaid. As a dignified mermaid, how dare you degrade yourself and humble yourself to a black conch? Do you deserve to be called a mermaid? As for the black killer snail king, let's wait until he finds me. As he spoke, the blade purgatory was completed. Han Fei drew his knife from the void and continued to fight with the mermaid with the sacrificing punch. Chapter 1588. Boom! This was already the 9th crack that appeared in the sky. Han Fei couldn't tell if his family was among them. However, Han Fei was sure that the black killer snail king didn't come. According to Jin Tong, according to the speed of the fake king, the distance of 700,000 kilometers couldn't be covered in less than 10 seconds. And now, it happened to be the 10th second. Rip! Han Fei cut off the vitality of the venerable mermaid in front of him. His soul power had been replenished, and his strength had returned to the peak. Boom! The 10th venerable mermaid died. The downpour was as red as blood, which was enough to prove how terrifying this hunt was and how many people were killed in this hunt. When Han Fei returned, he learned that of the 10 venerables that had just died, 3 were killed by him, and 5 were killed by human beings. On the other hand, the enemy's peak venerables seemed to have perished together with the 2 high-rank venerable undyings. When Han Fei returned, Netherworld happened to tear apart the peak-level venerable who was fighting him. Han Fei attacked without hesitation. World's End near at hand. Coming to Netherworld's battlefield, Han Fei shouted, "This place is forbidden." So, Netherworld and Han Fei attacked at the same time and killed another venerable mermaid. Netherworld glanced at Han Fei. The black killer snail king didn't come. While talking, Netherworld charged at the sea demon venerable who was fighting Yi Qian. At the same time, he pushed a large amount of death energy toward an advanced venerable. Han Fei remembered that just now, the 3 advanced venerables surrounded a peak-level venerable. As a result, a peak-level venerable died, and 2 of the 3 advanced venerables were killed and 1 was seriously injured. Han Fei responded, "It's okay, but we have to finish this battle as soon as possible." Yi Qian shouted, "That's fast enough. Go help the others." When Yi Qian shouted, Han Fei had already charged out. Han Fei didn't know what the situation was like on the Black Killer Snail King's side. However, since the Black Killer Snail King didn't come, it meant that it had gone to the first island of the Immortal City. If he were the Black Killer Snail King, he would do the same. Therefore, Han Fei had prepared a trap on the first island. But it was hard to say whether it could trap people or not. Boom, as if it were daily thunder, red cracks appeared in the sky one after another. But this time, it wasn't only the 7th camp that had fallen. This meant that the battle with the Black Killer Snail had officially begun. Boom, boom, boom. In the span of 5 breaths, there were 4 consecutive explosions. Apart from the 7th island that lost another rudimentary venerable one, the people on the first island were falling faster. Suddenly, Han Fei noticed that one of the cracks was extremely shallow. This scene shocked Han Fei. On the other side of Life and Death Gorge, Old Sheep made his move. A moment ago, in the Life and Death Gorge battlefield, the old goat stood behind the valley and looked up at the sky. All of a sudden, the old goat was shaken. It deduced that a supreme expert had fallen. Just as the old goat gathered everyone and was about to give the order to attack, 5 of them died in a short span of 5 breaths. The changes in the sky were reflected from the human battlefront to the Life and Death Gorge. At this moment, Old Sheep knew that Han Fei's side must be fighting fiercely. Old Goat shouted, "All the venerables of Myriad Beast Island, kill them! Let's go to Black Blood City and see what it looks like." While shouting, the old goat stepped on a cloud and rushed into the Life and Death Gorge. Beside the old goat, the giant bear roared, the fierce tiger roared, the flood dragon danced, and the Qilin rushed forward. Kill them. Die, the fish and shrimps of Black Blood City. In the ball cage, the demon beasts are invincible. Roar. On the opposite side of the life and death gorge, 6 demi-kings blocked the way, ready to attack. However, when they saw a 9-tailed white fox, they were all shocked. A sea demon demi-king roared. Anyone below the venerable level, return to the city. Peak level venerable, come forward. The 9th king is back. The 6 demi-kings were all panicked when they saw the demon-beast alliance's charging stance. At that moment, these demi-kings guessed that the human beings and the demon-beast alliance had reached an agreement. Both sides attacked at the same time, intending to suppress Black Blood City. Different from the human battlefront in the Immortal City, as soon as the beasts attacked, there were hundreds of them. In just 200,000 kilometers, as many as 160 of them were attacking. 12 Who the hell would be able to withstand this? Even though the Black Killer Snail King had sent more people to the Life and Death Gorge, they were still inferior to the Demon Beast Alliance in terms of the number of venerables. Moreover, the Demon Beast Alliance also had a false king. This was the biggest variable on the battlefield. Otherwise, they could have fought this battle. At this moment, battles broke out in 3 places one after another. On the first island, the Black Killer Snail King led an army with a total of 58 venerables. What did that mean? A demi-king led 58 venerables to charge into the Immortal City. No matter how powerful Golden Boy was, he was no match for them. Therefore, more than 30 venerables far away in the Immortal City all came out. Among them, Netherworld brought 15 venerables to Han Fei's side. The rest were all taken away by Golden Boy. Among them, the peak-level venerables were all taken away by Golden Boy. As for the 7 major islands, except for the first island and the 7th island, all went to war in order to stall the enemy. In fact, both sides had the same idea. Now, it was a competition between the first island and the 7th island. Which side was more ruthless and capable of killing? 20 seconds passed, and the cracks in the sky didn't stop at all. Because of Han Fei, all the beginner venerables and intermediate venerables of the 7th camp were killed, leaving only 1 peak-level venerable and 1 advanced venerable struggling. However, their struggle was destined to be in vain. Including Han Fei, there were 2 demi-kings, 1 peak-level venerable, 3 advanced venerables, 15 intermediate venerables, and 16 beginner venerables. Han Fei attacked very aggressively and killed 16 venerables in a row. Even on his side, many venerables had been seriously injured, but the sky cracks appeared as many as 32 times. Among them, a total of 19 people died in the 7th Soul Realm. On the human side, in addition to the 2 immortals who died, a beginner venerable and a sea demon venerable died together. So, where did the other 13 venerables who died come from? Han Fei didn't know. After all, too many people died, to the point that it was impossible to distinguish the weather. When there were only 2 sea demons left in the 7th camp, Yi Qian, Han Fei, and Netherworld joined forces and quickly killed the last 2 peak-level venerables. Han Fei shouted, "Netherworld! I'll take my people to the first island. Here, follow the original plan." Netherworld was blocking the void. Hearing Han Fei's words, he said, "Okay. You don't have enough manpower on your side, do you?" Han Fei said, "Almost. It's okay." Then Han Fei shouted, "Everyone, return to your positions and follow me to support the first island." With Han Fei's help, Long Shi and the others quickly killed several venerables. The entire 7th camp had been swept by the human side, and they had long been gathering in Han Fei's place. Han Fei glanced at them and found that although they were seriously injured, they didn't have the time to save them at this moment. Han Fei stretched out his hand and drew an array in the void. At the same time, the illusion of mountains and rivers appeared. Han Fei said, "The seriously injured fight next time. Don't come out until I call you." Boom, the 7th camp had been swept, but there were still venerables dying in the sky. 30 breaths of time had passed since the start of the battle, but 39 venerables had fallen. At this time, Han Fei couldn't tell how many venerables had died on the first island. How many people had died on the Life and Death Gorge? In short, This battle had just begun. Many ordinary people in the cage were probably stunned. The first island. When the Black Killer Snail King came here, there were 59 venerables in total, including the Black Killer Snail King. Therefore, when the first venerable died, all the people on the first island, including those below the venerable realm, had begun to evacuate. This was Han Fei's purpose. He wanted to make use of the time difference. When the Black Killer Snail King arrived, most of the people on the first island had evacuated. Some immortals were taking teleportation arrays to evacuate. However, the Black Killer Snail King would never give them a chance. Its aura descended. In an instant, hundreds of immortals were crushed. The Golden Boy led 30 people and had been waiting in front of the battle array. The Black Killer Snail King paused and shouted, "Immortal Golden Boy, do you think you can stop me?" Holding the Black Dragon Subduing Rod, the Golden Boy pointed at the Black Killer Snail King. "There will be a battle between the Black Blood City and the Immortal City. Can I stop you? I don't know. But I know that you've lost this battle." "Pa, I lost? Do you think you can beat me by cooperating with that kid Han Fei? You just took down the 7th camp. Then I'll sweep all the way from the first island. Kill." Every second counted in a battle. The Black Killer Snail King wouldn't be stupid enough to talk nonsense with the Golden Boy here. The slower he was, the greater the loss of the Sea Demon camp would be. He knew that today's battle was Han Fei's idea. Those who dared to risk their lives and ignore the lives of others must have seen life and death and were bold. Besides, such a battle hadn't happened in the Wall of Death for tens of thousands of years. At this moment, Han Fei was obviously exchanging kills with him. This kind of fighting style was simply a fighting style that would cause both sides to suffer. The Black Killer Snail King was confident that the 30 venerables led by the Golden Boy were no match for him. When the Black Killer Snail King and the Golden Boy fought, no half-king stopped them. 9 immortals at the peak stage of the Venerable Realm fought head-on against a half-king super expert. This was the maximum force that the Immortal City could mobilize. The only half-king in the rear was on Han Fei's side. When the Golden Boy and the peak stage venerables all attacked, the remaining immortals and human venerables scattered to fight their own battles. In the first battle, Han Fei's side would definitely win. But here, they could only fight with their lives. Chapter 1589. A battle between pseudo-monarchs would cause too much of a commotion and be too tyrannical. However, the Black Killer Snail King didn't care. After all, this was not his territory. Therefore, on the battlefield outside the first island, the teleportation arrays everywhere collapsed under the impact of the huge energy. But even so, no one except the demi-kings and peak-level venerables could withstand the battle between pseudo-kings. Therefore, the battle arrays had been divided into different areas. Without the 9 peak-level venerables, there were only 29 people on the first island, including the 9 who were originally guarding the island, and Jin Tong himself. Facing a total of 59 venerables from Black Blood City, including 8 peak-level venerables, this battle was just like the sea demons in the 7th camp. They couldn't win at all. Therefore, after only one collision, some immortals died in the second. In the 10th second, 8 immortals had died on the spot. If Han Fei could observe the situation on both sides of the battlefield, he would know that when the battle in the 7th camp was about to end, the crack of the way of heaven that killed 7 venerables came from the life and death gorge. However, the battle was so chaotic that no one paid attention to these details anymore. With Han Fei's ability, he could directly teleport 800,000 kilometers, which was something he could do when he was only a demi-king. As for now, with the help of the Tao patterns, he could even teleport as far as 4 million kilometers. Of course, that would cost a lot. If he wanted to teleport in batches, he couldn't do it alone. At this moment, the teleportation array on the first island was opened. When Han Fei walked out of the void, the place had become a ruin. The Black Killer Snail King and Jin Tong were fighting in the sky. 9 peak-level venerables were holding up 2 demi-king powerhouses. However, the opponent's peak-level venerables were slaughtering the immortals. Han Fei also knew how many people Jin Tong had brought. Jin Tong and 39 others were all immortals. Han Fei knew that as long as the Black Killer Snail King didn't go to the 7th camp to find him, the 1st camp would definitely suffer heavy losses. Judging from the current situation, Han Fei could sense that there were a total of 22 immortals on the human side, including Jin Tong. On the Black Blood City side, there were as many as 53 immortals, including the Black Killer Snail King. In other words, Black Blood City had killed 17 immortals in a row. Black Blood City, on the other hand, had only lost 6 people. According to this ratio, this kind of killing speed was almost equal to the entire 7th camp of sea demons. According to this way of death, as long as these people were given another 10 or 20 minutes, the advantage that Han Fei had accumulated from killing before would be gone in an instant. However, Han Fei's arrival also attracted the Black Killer Snail King's attention. The old turtle said in Han Fei's heart, "Han Fei boy, do you have to fight against this Black Snail King? Why didn't you bring a half-king and a peak-stage venerable with you? Why did you leave them in the 7th camp? Now, there are so many peak-stage venerable ones here. How are you going to fight them?" Han Fei's lips twitched. "Old Yuan, what do you think of my luck?" The old turtle said, "You have providence on you, but it doesn't mean that you can withdraw from this situation. With your strength, you can only resist 3 peak venerable ones at most, and no more. Look, how many peak stage venerable ones are here." As soon as the old turtle finished his thought, the Black Killer Snail's voice came rolling over, "Kill Han Fei. Black Blood City will win this battle." Bam, bam, bam. At this moment, Han Fei stepped on a series of steps. He didn't move, but arrays big and small surrounded Han Fei like a machine gun. Han Fei said, "Big Black Killer Snail, it seems that you really don't want your Black Blood City anymore, do you?" Hearing Han Fei's words, the Black Killer Snail King looked awful. Needless to say, many people had actually noticed it. Because some of the cracks were too shallow and they were reflected here from a long distance, so they weren't very strong. This meant that a chaotic battle had also broken out on the Life and Death Gorge. However, the Black Killer Snail King firmly believed that the situation on the Beast Island and Black School City was similar. Black Blood City had the Immortal City and the Demon Beast Alliance, and the Demon Beast Alliance also had the Forest of Horrors and Black Blood City. It was impossible for the Demon Beast Alliance to evacuate all its forces from the Forest of Horrors. In terms of combat power, the Forest of Horrors was much stronger than the Immortal City. Therefore, the Demon Beast Alliance had set up nearly 100 of them in the Forest of Horrors all year round. Once they were too few, it might cause a huge battle. Besides, before he came here, he had already sent people to the Forest of Horrors to inform them. He even asked them to put some pressure on the Demon Beast Alliance. In this way, the Black Killer Snail King estimated that the number of venerables on his side on the Life and Death Gorge wouldn't be much lower. The only problem was the fake king of the Demon Beast Alliance. Even if there were 6.5 kings guarding the Life and Death Gorge, it was still a bit difficult to protect them. Therefore, the Black Killer Snail King wanted to end the battle quickly. As long as he killed Han Fei, he would have plenty of time to take down the Immortal City. Today, tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. It was all the same. Therefore, at this moment, the Black Killer Snail King summoned 7 of the 8 peak-level venerables. Although there was a gap between the peak-level venerable and the half-king, it was definitely not that big. The half-king was still in the category of venerable, and the peak-level venerable was the limit of the venerable realm. However, the degree of control of the power of the Great Path was somewhat different. Just like 3 half-kings could hold up a pseudo-king, 3 peak-level venerables could hold up a half-king. The limit of Han Fei's current combat strength was also the half-king realm. Although there was a gap between these peak-level venerables and half-kings, just like the cooperation of the 5 major professions, they could also cooperate with each other. Therefore, when 7 peak-level venerables besieged Han Fei, even 2 half-kings could be held up. This was also why Jin Tong would hold up 2 half-kings from the Black Blood City with 9 peak-level venerables. Because the continuous attacks of 9 people, even if the opponent had 2 half-kings, it would be of no help. But the Black Killer Snail King's subordinates were too greedy. They didn't want to kill the strongest at the first moment. They wanted to kill more venerables, so they chose to hunt the immortals below the peak-level venerable level. In fact, when the venerables of the middle and lower realms died, they could also free up their hands to deal with the peak-level venerables. However, they didn't expect Han Fei to come so quickly. After all, it was more than 700,000 kilometers from the 7th camp to the first island. Unless there was a teleportation array, it would take at least 10 minutes for a venerable to break through the void, even if they were at the peak-level venerable level. As for the teleportation array, who would have the chance to activate it in the middle of a battle? If the teleportation array was destroyed halfway through the teleportation, the person might be strangled to death by the space cracks before he could make it here. As soon as Han Fei came out, 7 peak-level venerables besieged him. Jin Tong bellowed, and boundless death energy spread out. He shouted, "Where are the others?" Han Fei replied, "A little later. They'll be here soon." Boom, another crack appeared in the sky, but this crack was relatively shallow. Everyone seemed to have thought of something. The peak-level venerables besieging Han Fei attacked the arrays that Han Fei set up at the same time. Bam, bam, bam. With only one blow, more than 300 arrays collapsed in an instant. Han Fei performed the star's transposition, twisted the void, and disappeared from their encirclement. At the moment when he flashed out, the nearest mid-level venerable sea demon was about 600 kilometers away. However, Han Fei only needed to take one step to reach the end of the world. The moment Han Fei appeared, the mid-level venerable was horrified. Just when the sea demon was about to escape, a dragon roar exploded. The soul-devouring roar of 100 beasts made the sea demon bleed and stagger. At that moment, Han Fei grabbed the void lines and forcibly controlled this sea demon to self-destruct while he was in a daze. Rumble, the crack in the sky appeared again. Rolling ripples swept thousands of kilometers. Behind Han Fei, the 7 peak-level venerables surrounded him again. However, this time, Han Fei didn't have the support of arrays. The 8 of them began a life-and-death battle. Han Fei rushed at an advanced peak-level venerable. The 7 peak-level venerables were overjoyed. No matter how strong Han Fei was, he couldn't kill an advanced peak-level venerable with a single blow. This could stop him for at least half a breath. In half a breath, they could catch up with him. At this time, the advanced peak-level venerable turned his body into steel, trying to stop Han Fei. However, the void trembled, and Han Fei disappeared again. Han Fei appeared more than 300 kilometers away, where a junior peak-level venerable was fighting with the Undying. Han Fei shouted, "Go!" The Undying retreated frantically. Roar! The dragon roared again. Facing a junior peak-level venerable, Han Fei roared off half of its head. In the next moment, Han Fei stretched out his hand and slashed the sea demon at the peak level of a junior venerable. It only took him half a breath to run and fight at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. In the sky, 2 red cracks appeared at the same time. At the same time, there was a particularly harsh rumble. It turned out that it was not that someone had died, but that Han Fei had suddenly hit an invisible wall. The impact was so powerful that Han Fei's internal organs almost rolled over. A peak-level venerable sea demon roared, "Han Fei, do you think we're just chasing after you? Do you think you're the only one who knows forbidden techniques? Then let us see, just how strong is your pure physical strength." Han Fei didn't believe that the other party also knew forbidden techniques, but this space was indeed blocked. At the moment when these sea demons rushed over, Han Fei shouted, "Forbidden techniques here." Chapter 1590. In this space, after all spells were completely banned, Han Fei only had pure strength left. However, these peak-level venerables had long known that Han Fei had an indestructible golden body. At this time, they surrounded Han Fei and wanted to compete with him in pure strength. This would naturally arouse Han Fei's suspicion. But at the moment, these sea demons had no other choice. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, if you find something wrong later, remember to help me once." Before the old turtle could refute, Han Fei said, "Don't think I don't know. Over the years, you have secretly absorbed a lot of chaotic energy, haven't you? Your soul should be well nourished. Helping me is also helping yourself. The old turtle really didn't want to talk to Han Fei, but after hearing Han Fei's words, he still agreed, okay. Hearing the old turtle's words, Han Fei put on an evil smile and directly collided with a peak-level venerable in the front. Bim, like a nuclear explosion, huge waves surged, and the sea was collapsing. Void cracks flickered everywhere. The guy who collided with Han Fei head-on had one arm directly exploded into pieces. So strong. It was a pity that Han Fei didn't have much time to prepare for a blow. It was a hasty counterattack, but in the end, 2 fists were no match for 4 hands, although Han Fei had been trained by Ren Tianfei and fused combat skills with the god of war. However, the sea demons on the opposite side were not cabbages. They were real peak-level venerables. In terms of combat techniques, they had also studied for countless years and couldn't be any weaker than Han Fei. Therefore, at this time, the only thing Han Fei could rely on was his golden body and his majestic strength. As soon as they fought, Han Fei felt that the energy in his body was rapidly draining. Han Fei used the swallowing technique, trying to absorb the energy in the void. However, one of the sea demons sneered. All the energy in this space doesn't belong to you. Boom, at this time in the sky, a venerable would die from time to time. Han Fei knew that not far away, an undying was pierced and died on the spot. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. On the 5th breath, another undying and unknown venerable perished in the outside world. Surrounded, Han Fei's strength finally began to decline. There was no more energy to supply him. Bang bang bang. Within a minute, Han Fei had been hammered at least hundreds of times. At this moment, Han Fei really felt that his indestructible golden body might have been destroyed. During this period, Han Fei didn't fight back. Instead, red blood oozed out of his body. Although some people were a little puzzled and felt that the blood seemed a little strange, they didn't think too much of it. Fortunately, Elder Yuan suddenly shouted, "The seal has been lifted." Suddenly, Han Fei's eyes lit up, and he raised his head and roared. Roar! At that moment, the divine souls of the surrounding people trembled. In the void, a huge formation that spanned tens of thousands of meters suddenly flickered. A peak stage venerable shouted, "Oh no! The seal has been broken." Having said that, it was too late by the time the top-grade venerable one said that. An instant teleportation array was set up by Han Fei with the void lines and charged instantly. Seeing this scene, the Black Killer Snail King's face changed greatly. Realizing that there might be something wrong, he shouted, "Retreat!" However, as soon as the array was opened, Han Fei and the others disappeared in it. This was the teleportation array that Han Fei had been preparing for a long time. He had been slowly injecting spiritual energy into it, waiting for the moment when the void seal was broken. As soon as the seal was opened, the great array was instantly activated. Even the peak stage venerables couldn't escape. Swish, during the teleportation, these peak stage venerables didn't have Han Fei's indestructible golden body. They didn't dare to break this teleportation array by force, so the teleportation was very smooth this time. When their eyes lit up, they saw a vast grassland. They scanned it with their perception. It turned out that the range of their perception was very small, but they could see some arrays with their naked eyes. They thought it was an array set up by Han Fei. However, they heard Han Fei shout, "Senior, come out. I've brought you food. These people are too strong. I'm really no match for them. Senior, senior, senior." Han Fei yelled loudly. The activation of the purple dragon array was aimed at Zhao Xianglong and his men. Therefore, as long as Zhao Xianglong didn't come out, Jin Tong and the others didn't come out, the purple dragon array wouldn't be triggered. After all, the purple dragon array also needed to be restored. For those unnecessary people, there was no need to take the initiative to activate the array. Unless that person wanted to destroy the array, the peak stage venerables were all shocked, thinking that someone was waiting for them here. However, after a minute, Han Fei was still yelling, but there was no change here. Someone said, "Han Fei, I'm afraid you've miscalculated. Even Jin Tong has come out to fight. Who else can the immortal city send?" However, Han Fei suddenly shut up, tilted his head, and pointed behind the crowd. Someone turned around and exclaimed, "Who is it?" Hearing this shout, everyone turned around, but one person was still looking at Han Fei. Han Fei knew the characteristics of the desolate tomb. You couldn't stare at it or it would not move for a while. However, Han Fei didn't panic at all, because he knew that Zhao Xianglong would definitely take action. During the hand-to-hand fight just now, Han Fei deliberately stained his body with some dragon blood. When these peak stage venerables hit Han Fei, they were also stained with this dragon blood. Indeed, just now, Han Fei deliberately let them beat him. Otherwise, Han Fei would go and beat them. It was hard to say whether he could survive or not. After all, they were hunting him. Therefore, Han Fei deliberately let them beat him so that they were all stained with dragon blood. In Han Fei's opinion, if he couldn't even distinguish the dragon blood, Zhao Xianglong was definitely crazy. He knew the dragon bones, so how could he not be familiar with the smell of dragon blood? At this time, all Han Fei needed to do was to help Zhao Xianglong. Han Fei said, "You guys, show your real bodies and let me kill you." Han Fei attracted the attention of several people and they all turned around. However, someone immediately found that if they didn't look at the desolate tomb, they couldn't perceive it. Everyone looked back at Han Fei and then looked back at the desolate tomb. And Han Fei was indeed charging at them. As soon as those peak stage venerables saw the desolate tomb, they were in front of them in the blink of an eye. Behind them, Han Fei attacked again. Someone shouted, "Leave Han Fei to me. You guys destroy this weird tomb." Boom. Han Fei sneered. "Leave me to you? I don't think you're so shameless." Han Fei didn't know if those people had blinked or not. In short, there was suddenly one less person in front of him. And the desolate tomb happened to appear where he was. Boom, a crack appeared in the sky, and the venerable died. In any case, who knew how many times he had done it? No one cared about it at all. Han Fei punched the peak stage venerable back and saw another peak stage sea demon disappeared. Boom, someone shouted, "Not good. Back off, this tomb is weird." As soon as this person finished speaking, he was swallowed by the desolate tomb, and the crack in the sky reappeared. Someone roared, "What the hell is this? Let's go." The person who was going to deal with Han Fei didn't even look at the desolate tomb from beginning to end. However, the desolate tomb didn't care. It seemed to no longer play by the rules. Han Fei saw that the peak stage venerable's position was directly replaced by the desolate tomb. "Hisk," Han Fei shouted, "Senior, these are the food I brought for you. You have to remember to accumulate energy. I can't break the big array outside yet. But, Senior, can you let me leave first? There are still a large number of sea demon venerables outside. I'm going to hunt them all for you." Giggle. Dragon. Of the 7 peak stage venerables, there were only 3 left. At this moment, of the 3, one was trying to bombard the desolate tomb, and the other 2 were trying to rush out. However, no matter how they walked, their speed was completely slower than a fisherman's. They couldn't get out at all. Even if someone gathered all his energy to bombard it, he could only be swallowed by the desolate tomb. Someone strengthened himself with the Great Way and tried to freeze the entire grassland. Unfortunately, as soon as the power of the Great Way came out, it was absorbed by the desolate tomb. Han Fei saw that this guy was like a child and couldn't do anything to the desolate tomb at all. Han Fei immediately said, "Senior, I lured the Azure Dragon here. However, I don't know if the Azure Dragon knows you, Senior." So, it quickly fled to the depths of Black Blood City again. "Senior, these people are not weak, and they must have a lot of chaotic energy on them. You can take your time and I'll continue to hunt for you. Would you like to open a way for me to go out first?" After all, he was familiar with Han Fei the second time. Although this Zhao Xianglong was crazy, it wasn't the first time he had met Han Fei. Since he was locked up in this grassland, Han Fei was the only one who brought him food every time he came. Besides, the food he brought was of higher quality each time. These 7 great demons at the peak stage of the Venerable Realm were indeed what he needed. So, he took them all without hesitation. The next moment, Han Fei found that he had reached the edge of the grassland. Han Fei was excited. Fortunately, old Zhao knew me, Boom, boom, Han Fei looked up, and the blood rain was crazy, like a fucking water curtain. The world was filled with the color of blood. Tianqi. After leaving the grassland, Han Fei immediately performed the Tianqi divine technique on himself, and then the Gemini divine technique again. Han Fei raised one hand and drew an array in the air. 3 seconds later, Han Fei returned to the battlefield near the first island. Han Fei's appearance infuriated the Black Killer Snail King. Just now, there was a crack in the sky, and then another. Judging from the color of the cracks and the intensity of the blood rain, it was probably the 7 peak stage venerables that Han Fei took away just now. The Black Killer Snail King was a little horrified. He didn't know what method Han Fei used. How did he kill 7 peak stage venerables in such a short time? Even he might not be able to do that. Could it be that there was another fake king in the Immortal City? Han Fei glanced around. During the 10 seconds when he was away, there were only 14 immortals left, including the Golden Boy. On the Sea Demon's side, there were still 40. And this was when Han Fei took away the 7 peak stage venerables just now, otherwise, there would be 47 Sea Demon venerables left at this moment. So far, on the first island side, 25 immortals had died. No matter how many opponents Han Fei had killed, he couldn't laugh at this time. The price of this battle was too high. All of this was caused by him. Looking at these immortals who had almost no complaints, Han Fei felt inexplicably sad. 25 immortals died in a row, but no one fled. These people were still fighting. After paying such a big price, why didn't he continue to fight to the end? Han Fei stepped into the battlefield, pointed at the Black Killer Snail King, and shouted, "Big Black Killer Snail, I want you to die today." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.